Chapter 12-13. Return of the Blood Sword Sect. Jian Chen was only accompanied by the third heavenly layer Saint King Newbies on his journey to the Blood Sword Sect this time. Originally, they could have opened a space gate and arrived at the Blood Sword Sect through it. But unfortunately, neither Jian Chen nor Newbies knew the exact location of the sect, nor did they ever visit the place, so they did not know the exact location. As a result, they could only use the description from the four protectors to create a space gate several 100,000 kilometers away and fly the rest of the journey. Jian Chen and Newbies flew for an entire day and night under the lead of the four protectors before finally arriving where the Blood Sword Sect was located. To their surprise, the Blood Sword Sect was hidden in a small and extremely obscure valley within a huge, desolate mountain range. From the looks of it, the valley seemed rather similar to Longevity Valley where Uncle Xiao stayed. A village was present in the valley as well, except it was even more obscure than Longevity Valley. It was large as well, possessing over 2,000 wooden huts in a neat fashion. All of the huts were ordered in a pattern, but they varied in sizes. The huts at the edge were the smallest, and the closer to the center, the larger they became. A hall constructed from 10,000-year-old ironwood stood at the center. It contained 7 floors and took up several tens of thousand square meters. A dead silence loomed over the entire village when Jian Chen and Newbies saw it. There was not a single person there, nor was there any farmland in the surroundings. It could have been easily misunderstood as a ghost town. However, that was not what Jian Chen and Newbies believed. They had already sensed several powerful presences in the silent village, and the most powerful one had already reached Saint Emperor. Is this where the Blood Sword Sect is located? Jian Chen asked as he looked at the village. Sect Master, this is indeed where we are located. The disciples of the sect basically all stay in the huts to cultivate, and they don't usually come out unless there's something happening. It's very common for not a single person to emerge in half a month, explained a protector. I, the great Newbies, can tell that there are only 2,000 people in total with just a single glance. The Blood Sword Sect is one of the 3 great assassination organizations on the continent after all. They may have declined, but isn't there just too few people? Newbies curled his lips scornfully. His impression of the Blood Sword Sect immediately plummeted. Our sect has not declined. We've only gone into seclusion under the sect master's orders and never appear on the Tianyuan continent. We may have suffered heavy casualties from the battle 1,000 years ago, but we've recovered already after 1,000 years of recuperation. All the people here are the core disciples of our sect. All of them are elites. We have several tens of thousand other disciples outside, scattered and hidden across the entire continent, a protector explained emotionlessly. At this moment, a few people in red clothes flew over from the village, arriving before Jian Chen in just a few seconds. There were a total of 6 people. The leading person was an ordinary old man who seemed to be in his 70s. His vast presence allowed Jian Chen and Newbies to tell that he was a Saint King with a single glance and that he was the same as Newbies, at the 3rd heavenly layer. 2 people behind him were middle-aged men, while the other 3 were all old people. They were all at the 7th heavenly layer saint rulers at a minimum, and 2 of them were at the 9th heavenly layer. The Vice Sect Master Jiang Wang and the 5 elders have come to greet the Sect Master. The old man at the very front gave a clear greeting and bowed toward Jian Chen. He had learned that Jian Chen had become the Sect Master long ago and was extremely familiar with Jian Chen. Jian Chen could tell that the Vice Sect Master and the 5 elders were completely content with him taking up the position as Sect Master from their expressions. Jian Chen stepped up to help Jiang Wang rise and said, "There's no need to be so polite. I was fortunate enough to be favored by Uncle Xiao, which was why he passed the position as Sect Master to me, allowing me to take up the important matter of developing the Blood Sword Sect. If there's anything that I do incorrectly in the future, please show me how it's done, Vice Sect Master." The Sect Master is too modest. Within the Sect Master possesses supreme authority. How could I correct you? Jian Chen and Jiang Wang conversed politely out of courtesy before being invited into the village by Jiang Wang. The 5 elders and 4 protectors followed silently behind them. Sect Master, all the people here are the core disciples of the sect. There are around 2,300 total, and the weakest are Earth Saint Masters. There are around 220 Heaven Saint Masters and 9 Saint Rulers in total, which would be the 4 protectors and the 5 elders. As for the Saint Kings, there is only me. Where we stay contains a powerful killing formation as well, formed from over 2,000 wooden huts. The control center for the formation would be the Blood God Hall in the very center, which is also the residence of the Sect Master. Other than the Vice Sect Master, Everyone else can only enter the place after receiving the approval of the sect master. Along the way, Jiang Wang constantly explained the situation of the Blood Sword sect to Jian Chen. He began from where they stayed before moving on to the outer disciples that were scattered outside, allowing Jian Chen to gain a clear understanding of the structure of the sect in the end. The structure was not complicated at all. In fact, it was extremely simple. The entire organization was controlled by the 5 elders. They all managed their own squadron of people. The vice sect master, on the other hand, possessed complete authority over the 5 elders, while the sect master was an absolute existence in the sect. They could decide everything and anything for the sect. The next day, Jian Chen underwent the formal ceremony of taking up the position as sect master. The ceremony was very simple. It was hosted by the vice sect master, elders, and protectors, allowing all the core members to pay respects to the sect master. The first thing that Jian Chen did was hold a meeting after the ceremony. Currently, Jian Chen, newbies, Jiang Wang, the 5 elders, and the 4 protectors gathered in a room enveloped by a barrier in the Blood God Hall. They all were stern. Jian Chen had changed into the special attire of the sect master. He wore blood-red luxurious robes, which added a sense of maliciousness to his appearance. Today, I have 2 important matters to announce in this meeting. The first thing is that the Blood Sword sect will return to the continent again, Jian Chen sternly informed them. He rarely issued orders, but his words were filled with absolute authority. Jiang Wang, the elders, and the protectors all lit up in joy, but no one said anything in response. Jian Chen continued, "The next matter will be wiping out the underworld sect." If the first matter had delighted the upper echelon of the Blood Sword sect, the second made them all ecstatic. In all these years, the 3 great assassination organizations had always been in conflict with one another. Countless smaller clashes had occurred in the past, and their enmity had already reached an irreconcilable stage, especially when the Blood Sword sect waged a war that was unheard of against the Underworld sect and the Yama Hall. Back then, Houston's strength was absolute, and neither one of the 2 organizations were the opponent of the Blood Sword sect. In the end, the 2 organizations worked together, allowing them to face the Blood Sword sect in a life-or-death battle. The battle was extremely intense. Although the 2 organizations worked together, Houston's strength was still supreme and the Blood Sword sect was unstoppable. Under his lead, the Blood Sword sect still managed to suppress the 2 other organizations, pushing them toward the brink of destruction. In the end, the battle only stopped after Houston's wife was assassinated, and from then on, the Blood Sword sect vanished from the Tianyuan continent. During the 1,000 years, the entire sect had wanted to take revenge against the 2 assassination organizations several times, but they could do nothing due to the sect master's orders, much less appear on the continent, which was why they withheld their enmity for a whole millennia. Chapter 12:14. The president's size as one of the 7 capital cities on the continent, the City of God was bustling. Most of the people who strolled through the streets were rich merchants and the descendants of exceptional clans. Only once in a while would a few rough-looking mercenaries appear in the crowd. Not only was the City of God the territory of one of the 3 great clans that controlled the entire empire, the Tsar family, it was also the sanctuary of Radiant Saint Masters. Not only did most of the Radiant Saint Masters on the continent gather here, it was where all Class 7 Radiant Saint Masters lived. There were over 20 known Class 7 Radiant Saint Masters on the continent, and all of them had been bestowed a position as an elder of the Radiant Saint Master Union. A majestic castle stood quietly in the center of the city like a sleeping beast. It possessed a feeling like it had stood through many changes. The castle was snow-white, but it was aged, so it was not particularly bright in color. Traces of time were present on it. This castle was the headquarters of the Radiant Saint Master Union. On the 7th floor, the president, Adami, currently sat quietly on a throne in a beautifully adorned hall. His face was no longer as bright as before, now possessing traces of haggardness. Even his wrinkles had deepened, making him seem even older. "Esteemed President, Yilon wishes to see you." At this moment, a polite voice came from outside. "Sir, please come in," Adami gently replied. With a gentle wave of his right hand, a ball of milky white light flashed from it and the door opened silently. A man in tight-fitting robes walked in from outside. He only seemed to be in his early 30s since his dark eyes shone with vigor, like 2 pieces of obsidian. His handsome face possessed the weathering of wind and rain. "Esteemed President, I've led a group of people outside under your orders to find Master Yun Tian, but there hasn't been any news of him even now." The young man clasped his hands at the president. Adami frowned and thought, Yun Tian's already vanished for so many years. I really do wonder where he's gone. I've used a secret technique many times, but I still haven't been able to communicate with him. Has Yun Tian suffered an accident? The president darkened when he thought of that possibility. Yun Tian was his senior disciple. He had basically watched him grow up, so although they were just master and disciple, Adami had treated him as his own son. As a result, Adami felt rather sorrowful when he thought about how Yun Tian may have suffered an accident. Yilan, it's been tiring for you over the past few days. Go rest first. You don't need to search for Yun Tian anymore. Adami waved his hand gently. He was rather dispirited. President, you must look after yourself. I shall bid farewell, Yilan said in concern before backing out quietly. Sigh. With Yilan's departure, Adami sat back and leaned against the wide and comfortable throne. At this moment, Adami could not help but think about some matters of the past. In his life, he had taken on 3 disciples in total. The first one had departed long ago due to old age, while the second one was Yun Tian, who he had watched grow up. As for his third disciple, it was something that he felt most prideful about. Both his first and second disciples were exceptional. They possessed an extremely great talent among Radiant Saint Masters, but compared to his third disciple, the difference was just unsurmountable, because not only was his third disciple a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master, he was also a supreme expert that could shake up the continent. His achievements as a fighter had already surpassed his abilities as a Radiant Saint Master, already a famous Saint King who even the 10 Protector clans feared. Unfortunately, accidents occurred. The third disciple that Adami felt most pride for ended up taking away the Saint artifact of the Union, almost causing the Union to collapse. Not only did it result in an irreversible loss, it also cut Adami off from the possibility of becoming a Class 8 Radiant Saint Master. Adami was nearing the end of his life. He originally had a total of 3,000 years, and he gained another 200 years through a 10,000-year-old heavenly resource, so he had 3,200 years in total. Over 3,100 years had already passed, so he only had a few decades left. Adami had never married in his life, and he was without children. He only had a few wishes as he neared his death. One was to see the Union become even more powerful and even more glorious if he could not become a Class 8 Radiant Saint Master, while the other was being sent off by his closest disciples. However, his final wishes had all become dreams now. Let alone becoming even more powerful and even more glorious, it was extremely fortunate that the Union had not collapsed. Being sent off by his closest disciples was even more impossible. His second disciple had been missing for many years, and no one knew whether he was still alive or not right now, while his third disciple's status was far from what it had been in the past. Even as the president of the Union, he could not form proper ties with him, let alone be sent off by him. I've worked hard my entire life for the glory of the Union. I never thought that I would fail to see glory after over 2,000 years of work and that the Union would collapse in my hands. I am the offender of the Union. The president sighed at the sky. His voice trembled slightly and was filled with dreariness. Tears even pooled in his eyes. A tiny wooden hut stood all by itself on the peak of a mountain 10,000 kilometers from the city. Xueqi remained on the bed, eyes closed within the hut. She had been unconscious for many years already and had still not woken up. Kaiyun, do you still remember when we first met each other in the City of God? Back then, I was only an Earth Saint Master, and I had been chased into the city by a villain. I was very heavily injured and my space ring had been stolen as well. I had nothing. I was hungry and thirsty. With no other choice, I stole a set of clean clothes from a small household before dragging my exhausted body to an inn where I had a hearty meal. In the end, when I received the bill, I was completely ready to be beaten black and blue, but you suddenly appeared in that crucial moment. Back then, you were so pretty as a fairy from heaven. I was deeply drawn in at first glance. Back then, I still didn't know who you were. Not only did you help me pay off my bill, you even noticed that I was very heavily injured with a single glance. You gave me an invaluable Class 6 Radiant Spirit Pill and spoke with me for a long time. From that time on I had become your friend. I still remember when you found out that I had been hunted down by a villain. You fell into an utter rage, which we then went together to find him. We killed him by working together. Hao Wu held Xueqi's hand as he gently recalled their first meeting. Reminiscence filled his eyes. In all the years Xueqi had been unconscious, he had stayed there, having not left for even a single moment. Kaiyun, do you still remember our promise back then? You said that once we're strong enough, we'll live a life as wanderers and travel across the continent. Kaiyun, wake up. Let's go fulfill that promise. On a lone island several million kilometers away from the Tianyuan continent in the vast sea, a disheveled man in tattered clothes currently crouched down as he wolfed down a fish in his hands. I'll eat you. I'll eat you. Yes, yes. I'll eat you, Yang Yutian. I'll be eating you, eating your flesh, and drinking your blood. Ha 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 ha. Isn't it very painful? Cry out, cry out. Keep crying out, keep struggling. No matter how you struggle before I, Master Yuntian, you will still become my prey in the end. The beggar-like person mumbled mindlessly as he gnawed the fish in his hands, laughing idiotically from time to time. With a plop, the water near the shore splashed and a 60-centimeter fish accidentally leaped ashore. It struggled furiously in an attempt to return to the water. The man's eyes immediately lit up. He tossed away the half-eaten fish and cried out at the same time, Yang Yutian, don't run away. As he said that, he lunged forward, pressing the fish that was just about to return to the water into the ground. The lower half of his face smashed into the rock underneath, causing him to bleed from his nose and mouth. However, he did not seem to be in pain. He spat out a mouthful of blood and 2 broken teeth as he laughed in a deranged fashion. I caught you, Yang Yutian. Let's see how you run now. In front of me, you can't escape no matter how great you are. I want to eat your flesh and drink your blood. He used his hands to grab the fish under him. The fish immediately began to struggle desperately, rapidly opening and closing its mouth. Yun Tian became even more excited when he saw this. He laughed aloud. Yang Yutian, never did you think that you would end up like this. Struggle, struggle desperately. Call out miserably. Go on, do it. Plead for your life. Plead me to spare your life. I might just spare your life. Yang Yutian, why aren't you saying anything? Why aren't you pleading? Talk, go on, talk. Okay, Yang Yutian. You're not going to talk. Since you're not going to talk, don't blame me. I'll bite you to death. As he said that, Yun Tian opened his bloodied mouth to viciously bite the fish. His 2 broken teeth could clearly be seen. Hey you! Yeah you! Another survey. Chapter 12:15, Wiping Out the Underworld Sect 1. When the Beast God continent had launched a large-scale invasion of the Tianyuan continent because of the winged tiger god, they were obstructed by the experts of the Tianyuan continent before an agreement was reached. Thus, the experts all temporarily settled down on an island. Afterward, Yun Tian left the Union and the continent with news regarding the winged tiger god, wanting to find the experts to tell them that the winged tiger god was with Jian Chen and, hence, cause problems for him. However, Yun Tian fainted from exhaustion after flying for a few days. Just as he was about to drown, a magical beast happened to pass by. The magical beast scooped him from the water and brought him to the island. After learning about the winged tiger god from Yun Tian, the experts of the Beast God continent set off for the Tianyuan continent again while Yun Tian was left on the island. Yun Tian was unable to make the journey because the island was extremely far away from the continent. He had no idea in which direction to travel, and he was not strong enough for the journey, so he ended up trapped there. At the very beginning, Yun Tian was still able to keep his sanity, but after quite some time, he could no longer bear it and was eventually reduced to his current shape. Jian Chen led the vice sect master, the 5 elders, and the 4 protectors the morning of the next day. They headed to where the underworld sect was located. Newbies obviously followed along as well. Zhang Wang had searched for the exact hiding location of the underworld sect himself, so he had left down marks from back then. They arrived where the underworld sect was located through a space gate created by the vice sect master. It was located in a yellow world, sand as far as the eye could see. The burning sun hung high in the air and radiated with an intense heat, baking the earth until it was scorching hot. Jian Chen, newbies, Zhang Wang, the 5 elders, and the 4 protectors all levitated in the sky at ease. They gazed at the ground from above. The severe conditions of the desert did not affect them at all. Sect Master, in order to prevent the experts of the underworld sect from sensing us, I've chosen to construct the space gate 1,000 kilometers away. There's a region of loose sand up ahead. The divine hall of the underworld sect is hidden beneath the loose sand, Zhang Wang explained to Jian Chen. Jian Chen immediately looked ahead and nodded slightly. He said, "Let's go." With that, the group set off. The weakest among them were the 4 protectors, who were saint rulers at the fifth heavenly layer, so all of them possessed a rather deep comprehension of space. As a result, they moved extremely quickly, crossing 1,000 kilometers in less than 5 minutes. Jian Chen immediately extended his presence into the ground when he arrived above the region of loose sand. Indeed, he discovered a huge divine hall standing silently underneath the sand. Jian Chen's eyes grew cold. Of the 2 organizations that had murdered Uncle Xiu's wife all those years ago, the Yama Hall had already been devastated by him. All that was left was the underworld sect. Jian Chen did not hesitate. A powerful killing intent surged out of him into the surroundings while the Emperor armament silently appeared in his hand. A dark mist coiled around the weapon, giving off the violent presence of destruction. Jiang Wang and the 5 elders shivered inside. Jian Chen's killing intent was enough to make them tremble in fear, allowing them to finally witness Jian Chen's strength. All of them sighed. The rumors were true. Although they had heard about Jian Chen's strength, they learned about it from the rumors of the Tian Yuan continent. None of them had any idea just how many of the rumors were fake. Jian Chen swung his sword and a black sword chi an arm thick shot through the air like a bolt of lightning. It disappeared into the loose sand below in a single instant. The sword chi possessed the might of a 7 heavenly layer Saint King, so it shot toward the divine hall 100 meters below. Although it was nowhere near enough to break through the divine hall, it was enough to shake it. The divine hall shook violently, alarming all the people within it. The next moment, a black figure shot out of it with lightning-like speed, emerging with a powerful presence. It faced against Jian Chen's group. It was a person completely shrouded by black robes. The figure's appearance was completely obscured, making it impossible to distinguish whether the figure was a man or a woman. The figure bore the presence of a 5th heavenly layer Saint King. "Who are you? Why are you provoking my underworld sect?" The shrouded person questioned in a heavy hoarse voice, again, making it impossible to distinguish their gender. "Ha ha ha, Luo Qi. Isn't your memory a little too horrible? It's only been 1,000 years, yet you've forgotten your old friends," sneered Jiang Wang. "It's you, Jiang Wang. You're all people from the Blood Sword sect." The shrouded person's voice was filled with shock. It continued, "Hasn't the Blood Sword sect stepped back from the continent and no longer bothers with any matters that have to do with the continent? I wonder why you've come with such a great party then? Luo Qi, this is the new sect master of our Blood Sword sect. By the orders of the sect master, we have returned, and you, the underworld sect, will be an offering for our return," laughed Jiang Wang. "Humph, you still don't have the right to wipe out my underworld sect," sneered the shrouded figure. Its voice was filled with disdain. "It's still not up to you to decide whether we have the right or not," Jian Chen coldly replied. He took a step and arrived by the side of the shrouded figure, stabbing his emperor armament at the person's head. The shrouded figure was secretly shocked when it sensed the strength of Jian Chen's attack. However, it did not move slowly at all. Vast amounts of darkness-attributed saint force surged from a palm, immediately condensing into a small black dagger. Without retreating at all, they dodged Jian Chen's sword while the dagger lashed out like a calm viper, soundlessly stabbing toward the center of Jian Chen's forehead as a black streak of light. The corner of Jian Chen's lips curled up in disdain. Rotating his wrist, he redirected the sword toward the figure's head. If Jian Chen's first strike possessed speed that was nothing spectacular, the second attack was unbelievably fast. A pitch-black crack formed wherever the sword swept past. The shrouded figure was surprised inside. Jian Chen's attack was just too fast, so fast that as a 5th heavenly layer Saint King, the figure had almost failed to react. It was already too late to dodge, so without any other choices, the figure could only redirect the dagger to parry the Emperor armament. A boom immediately erupted when the two weapons clashed. A powerful ripple of energy spread out with the two of them as the epicenter, wreaking havoc in all directions as a wave. Jian Chen's strike possessed the strength of a 7th heavenly layer Saint King, so how could the shrouded figure block it? The figure was immediately sent into a rapid retreat. The strength of the new sect master is so powerful, actually at the 7th heavenly layer. There's no one in the sect that his opponent other than the former sect master, who's in seclusion. The shrouded person was secretly astounded. It immediately abandoned the battle, quickly charging underground. As long as the figure made it back to the divine hall, it would be invincible. However, a bone-chilling event hit the person just as they moved. Jian Chen arrived by their side like a ghost while the black light on the Emperor armament surged, stabbing out again with lightning-like speed. The tip of the sword was less than 3 inches away from the person's forehead. They could even feel a stabbing pain from the figure's soul at such a close range, as if his or her soul was about to be ripped into pieces. The shrouded figure paled in fright. Other than Houston 1,000 years ago, this was the first time it had ever felt so close to death. At this crucial moment, the person spat out a mouthful of thick, black mist and yelled, "Darkness art, afterimage clone." Jian Chen's emperor armament stabbed into the person's head as soon as the figure yelled. However, Jian Chen did not rejoice and instead frowned. His sword failed to land. Bang! As soon as that thought crossed Jian Chen's mind, the black figure exploded loudly. It turned into dense black mist, quickly expanding and engulfing Jian Chen. The mist was no ordinary mist, but formed from darkness-attributed saint force. Even Jian Chen's visibility was severely limited within the mist. Suddenly, a small black dagger appeared silently behind him. The dagger had completely fused with the mist, so it was extremely difficult to sense no matter how sharp Jian Chen's senses were. However, Jian Chen suddenly turned around just as the dagger was about to stab him. He swung his emperor armament without any hesitation and the chaotic force on the weapon cleaved through the space. The stroke was extremely powerful, enough to affect the space in the region of 100 meters, causing it to violently pulse. Arg! With a painful cry, a bloodied hand fell out of the sky with the dagger before it could deal a fatal strike to Jian Chen. Not only did the shrouded person fail to assassinate Jian Chen in the mist, that figure even lost an arm. The mist slowly dispersed and Jian Chen gradually appeared before everyone. However, the shrouded figure had already disappeared. The vice-sect master and the 5 elders could not help but feel relieved when they saw Jian Chen perfectly fine. Although they knew that he was very powerful, the opponent this time was an expert of the underworld sect who was skilled in assassination techniques. There was the threat of dying with the slightest carelessness. "Sect master, are you all right? Where's Luo Qi?" Jiang Wang arrived beside Jian Chen and asked about his well-being. Jian Chen was calm and composed. He gently shook his head. "He's still not enough to pose a threat to me, but he sure ran pretty quickly." After severing his arm, he immediately fled into the sand and into the divine hall. Jian Chen put it lightly, but Jiang Wang and the 5 elders were all secretly stunned. A 5th heavenly layer saint king of the underworld sect, skilled in assassination, was actually not enough to pose a threat to him, which convinced them of his strength again. At this moment, Jiang Wang and the 5 elders all agreed inside that Jian Chen was even more powerful than the rumors. "Hey you! Yeah you! Another survey!" Chapter 12:16. Wiping out the underworld sect, 2. Suddenly, the sand underneath began to violently churn. A divine hall shot out, slowly emerging with a vast presence. "That's the darkness divine hall of the underworld sect," Jiang Wang immediately cried as he watched the giant divine hall slowly emerge from the sand. He became stern. Although he knew that Jian Chen had a method to break through it, its tough defenses still pressured him on a psychological level. This was because if they could not smash through it, they would not be able to touch the assassins hiding inside, and a Saint Emperor's power was required to smash through it. Every single divine hall on the Tianyuan continent was created by Saint Emperors, so they possessed the power of Saint Emperors. Although this power could not be used to harm those outside the divine hall, it was the structure's strongest defense. It was not something that Saint Kings could break through even if they were at great perfection. "My underworld sect has existed for over 100,000 years on the Tianyuan continent, so how can we be wiped out by you, the mere blood sword sect? Even with Houston's supreme strength 1,000 years ago, you still didn't have the power to wipe us out. So I'd like to see just how you will finish us off today." Luo Qi's furious voice rang from the divine hall. Under Luo Qi's control, the divine hall rapidly expanded before arriving above Jian Chen and the others. It shot down with its great presence. Jian Chen coldly smiled. A piece of jade had silently appeared in his hand, and by tightening his grip slightly, the jade piece was crushed into pieces. "Sect Master, let's retreat," Jiang Wang suggested from beside Jian Chen before quickly retreating with the 5 elders and 4 protectors in attempt to escape the area covered by the divine hall. Although the structure did not possess any offensive capabilities, none of them wanted to be pressed into the sand. However, just when they had retreated by a few dozen meters and had yet to make it out, spatial force suddenly appeared near Jian Chen. 10 meters away from him, the space violently rippled and it ripped open, forming a multicolored space gate. A vast pressure flooded out of the space gate the moment it formed, filling up the surroundings. The air around seemed to have stopped moving because of the vast pressure and became thick. The group of experts from the Blood Sword sect all froze as well. Other than Jiang Wang, who was at the third heavenly layer of Saint King, the elders and protectors felt like they were suffocating before the pressure. They felt like they had lost the ability to breathe. Jiang Wang and the elders were shocked while the four protectors maintained their composure. The pressure had greatly exceeded their former sect master's aura, making them believe that they were facing a saint emperor. The structure continued to rapidly descend as it grew closer from above, blotting out the sun like a dark cloud. As that happened, Rue Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu emerged side by side from the space gate. They noticed the divine hall in the sky as soon as they arrived, and a sliver of scorn immediately appeared in their eyes. Rue Jin slowly raised his hand and held up the divine hall with his right hand. With a creak, Rue Jin's hand actually forced the divine hall to suddenly halt from its descent, as if the huge divine hall was being held up by Rue Jin with a single hand. The eyes of Jiang Wang, the elders, and the protectors all narrowed at this sight. Stopping a divine hall with a single hand was not something a saint king at great perfection could accomplish. The six of them had all become stunned by the supreme strength Rue Jin had displayed. Although they had heard rumors that Jian Chen possessed 3 experts who were no weaker than saint emperors by his side, they were still rumors after all. They thought the rumors had all been exaggerated, but what they were witnessing today validated the rumors. One of them could stop the descent of a divine hall with a single hand and appear as though they were at ease. With their understanding, only saint emperors could do something like that. Other than the 4 protectors who had already seen the trio's strength, all the other people's opinions of Rue Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu underwent a drastic change. They all looked at them with unhidable respect. At this moment, Rue Jin's hand suddenly jerked and a thunderous creak immediately appeared. The divine hall was actually thrown high up into the air with just a jerk of his hand. Saint Emperors? Your Saint Emperors? Impossible, this is impossible. Other than the Path Lord of the Carnal Desires, there is no second Saint Emperor on the Tianyuan continent. Luo Qi's terrifying voice rang out of the divine hall, but something seemed to cross his mind very soon. Luo Qi cried out uncontrollably, I know. You're the 3 magical beast experts that follow the captain of the Flame Mercenaries. No one paid any attention to Luo Qi even though he was a 5th heavenly layer Saint King. At the same time, a dazzling streak of golden light suddenly appeared. Rue Jin had already drawn the sacred dragon's sword. Holding it above his head, his presence rapidly skyrocketed. He then chopped at the structure. With that attack, a 100-meter golden sword chi directly appeared. It possessed origin energy, an energy that could only be controlled by sovereign-like existences that had surpassed Saint Emperor and stepped into the origin realm. Even Saint Emperors needed to avoid it. The huge sword chi landed on the divine hall, and it immediately rumbled loudly. The entire structure violently shook before splitting in half while Jian Chen and the others were filled with disbelief. The divine hall had actually been chopped in half with a single stroke from Rue Jin. Chapter 12:17. Ancient teleportation formation. Rue Jin's dragon's domain had already engulfed a radius of 1,000 kilometers, but it had only been a few seconds since the divine hall of the underworld sect had been destroyed. In such a short amount of time, even saint rulers could not traverse 1,000 kilometers, so all the assassins were trapped in the domain as soon as it formed. No one managed to flee successfully. Jiang Wang and the 5 protectors had all caught up with the saint rulers now, and began a great fight with everything they had. All the saint rulers of the underworld sect used darkness-attributed saint force, so they all used secret techniques to morph into dense, black mist as soon as the battle began. They engulfed a certain range, silently moving through the mist in search of an opportunity to deal a sneak attack on their enemies. The saint rulers of the underworld sect mainly used their darkness-attributed saint force to assassinate their targets, while the Blood Sword sect used baleful force as their trump card. All the assassination organizations used unique techniques. However, none of them used baleful force in their fight against the saint rulers of the underworld sect. Baleful force was refined through slaughter, so it was just too valuable to saint rulers. Even though that was the case, the experts of the Blood Sword sect gained the upper hand since they were unaffected by the dragon's domain and, hence, at a complete advantage. On the other hand, the saint rulers of the underworld sect struggled to use 70 to 80% of their power under the restraint of the dragon's domain. Bang! Jiang Wang casually struck the head of a saint ruler with his hand, blowing the head up on the spot and wiping out the soul. At the same time, a ninth heavenly layer elder killed his opponent as well. A blood-red spike passed through the forehead of his enemy before emerging from the other side. It completely passed through the person's head and dissipated his opponent's soul before he could flee. Jian Chen did not take part in the battle and instead stood with newbies. He constantly looked around with sharp eyes. He planned on leaving all the saint rulers to Jiang Wang and the elders. He would not bother with personally dealing with those who were weaker. Odd. Jian Chen. Why don't I see that dude with the arm you took? Newbie stood beside Jian Chen with his arms crossed as he constantly looked around, searching. Jian Chen frowned slightly. He too had been waiting for Luo Qi this entire time, but he still had not seen Luo Qi flee from the Divine Hall. Although the Divine Hall was now ruined, the power inside had yet to dissipate completely, so his presence could not enter the structure. Perhaps Luo Qi is still hiding within the Divine Hall? Jian Chen mumbled to himself. Although all the assassins that fled from the Divine Hall wore the exact same thing, none of them could escape his presence. He did not find Luo Qi at all. I'll enter the Divine Hall and have a look, said Jian Chen before entering the ruins. Newbies followed him in as well. The Divine Hall was pitch black inside. The darkness-attributed Saint Force was extremely dense. For those who used darkness-attributed Saint Force, cultivating inside would have been extremely effective, but the structure was now destroyed, so the Saint Force was slowly dissipating. The power of the Divine Hall dispersed rapidly as well. Jian Chen stood with newbies in the dark structure. He frowned slightly because their visibility was limited to 5 meters due to the darkness. Humph. Do you think darkness-attributed Saint Force is enough to stop me, the great newbies? Newbies sneered. He then immediately began to shine with a dazzling golden glow. He was like a miniature sun in the Divine Hall where the Saint Force dispersed as soon as it came in contact with the light. In the blink of an eye, the Divine Hall cleared up. They were inside a well-adorned hall. It was empty, only possessing a few valuable decorations. Jian Chen ignored the decor and looked around. He said, Luo Qi must be hiding in this Divine Hall. Let's look around first. We can't let him escape, or it'll cause endless future problems. We have the 3 seniors watching guard outside, so we don't need to worry about Luo Qi fleeing from another exit while we're in here. Jian Chen and newbies began to look through the Divine Hall. There was still some residual power of the Divine Hall in the surrounding walls, obstructing Jian Chen's presence. As a result, they could only search slowly. Along the way, Jian Chen came across quite a few tunnels that had been hidden by walls as well as formations that were concealed everywhere. However, they were all smashed through by the 2 of them. The toughness of the Divine Hall and the formations inside were supported by the Divine Hall's power, so as it slowly dissipated, both the walls and formations weakened greatly. At this moment, in an extremely well-hidden room within the Divine Hall, a shrouded person, who was missing an arm, stood with a short old man. The old man was rather pale, but his eyes shone with vigor. Luo Qi, there's already been 2 people who've entered the Divine Hall. It probably won't take them long to arrive here. We need to leave as soon as possible, the old man said softly and indifferently. Former sect master, we're not going to bother with the other people of the sect? Luo Qi asked hoarsely. They can destroy the Darkness Divine Hall with a single strike, so they must be at the level of Saint Emperors. Against such opponents, I wouldn't even have the power to fight back even if I was at my peak. Humph. This baleful force sure is powerful. I was injured by Houston's baleful force 1,000 years ago. My soul still hasn't recovered after 1,000 years of resting, the old man coldly stated. He was still filled with much hatred. All the people of the Bloodsword sect are outside right now as well as the 3 terrifyingly powerful magical beasts. We'll definitely be discovered if we go out, so how should we leave? Luo Qi asked. I already understand the situation outside. An expert has already cast an absolute secret technique to engulf the surrounding radius of 1,000 kilometers. We definitely can't go outside, but we still have one thing we've been holding back, or we'll probably end up dead today, the short old man spoke in a heavy voice. Darkness-attributed Saint Force surged from his feet into the ground. Gradually, an extremely complicated formation appeared beneath them. This is a space gate. Can we leave through a space gate in the Divine Hall? Isn't it impossible to rip open space in the Divine Hall? Luo Qi asked doubtfully. The short old man coldly smiled with that. This is no space gate, but an ancient teleportation formation. It was accidentally obtained by the sect several tens of thousand years ago, and it was cast here to prepare for the day when we suffer devastating attacks from enemies. It can allow us to avoid this disaster, and once it's used, the formation will shatter by itself. There's no need to worry about people following our tracks. Xueqi rejoiced inside. He said, "Let me go get the Saint Tier battle skill first and then we can leave. There's not enough time. The two of them are already close, so we need to leave immediately. Otherwise, we won't be able to leave if they destroy the formation," replied the old man. The teleportation formation was activated very quickly. With a violent rippling of space, the two of them disappeared. Several hundred meters away, Jian Chen and newbies continued to search, headed in the direction of the room. The divine hall's power was much thinner than before, so Jian Chen's presence could pass through a few obstructions with some difficulty. When Xueqi and the old man left through the teleportation formation, Jian Chen's expression changed. He could suddenly feel an extremely minute rippling of space, so he quickly ran in the direction without a second thought. Boom! Jian Chen cut down the entrance with a single stroke after arriving outside the room. The rippling of space that filled the room became even more intense now that the door was gone, but there was not a single person in it, only a destroyed formation on the ground. Jian Chen sighed when he saw the formation. "We've come too late. They've already left. I never thought they could leave through a space gate in the Divine Hall." Newbie's face became rather sunken. He knew exactly what it meant for a fifth heavenly layer Saint King to flee. Their future problems would be unending once they decided to take revenge, and it would become an extremely annoying situation, let alone the fact that the person who escaped was a Saint King assassin. "Jian Chen, what do we do?" Newbie's complexion became rather ugly. He had already become great friends with Jian Chen since what had happened in the past, so he obviously treated Jian Chen's business as his own. Jian Chen furrowed his brows in thought before relaxing soon after. His greatest worry was the Chongyang clan and his friends in the Flame Mercenaries, but the Chongyang clan was now protected by Chongyang Zhu Yunxiao, who was basically on par with a Saint King at great perfection, so the clan were basically impregnable. He planned on asking Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu to look over the Flame Mercenaries. Yu could help as well, so he would no longer have to worry about Bai Lian and the others' safety once the Bright Moon Divine Hall was present. Afterward, Jian Chen and newbies began to search the Divine Hall. They found a huge stone tablet lodged into a stone wall in a neighboring room. What surprised Jian Chen was that it was actually a complete Saint Tier battle skill. Jian Chen began to remove the stone tablet from the wall without any hesitation. Only after a tremendous amount of effort did he finally succeed in removing the tablet. It was only 5 meters long, but it was exceptionally heavy, countless times heavier than metal. Even with Jian Chen's current strength, he needed to use quite some power to lift it up. The Saint Tier battle skill recorded in the stone tablet was a fist technique, which was unsuitable for Jian Chen. Jian Chen walked a different path of cultivation from the people of the Tian Yuan continent, so he could not practice Saint Tier battle skills. He threw the tablet into the artifact space, planning to get the elites in there to comprehend the Saint Tier battle skill after they became Saint rulers. Chapter 12:18. Proceeding to the Ice Goddess Hall. 1. Jian Chen and newbies searched through the Darkness Divine Hall again after removing the Saint Tier battle skill, but it was a pity that they did not obtain anything else. Jian Chen was still very satisfied, however, since a complete Saint Tier battle skill was the greatest item he could have found. Jian Chen and newbies left the Darkness Divine Hall and returned to the other people's side. They saw that the experts of the Bloodsword sect had already been waiting for quite some time, as they had already killed off the several thousand assassins of the Underworld sect. "Sect Master, where's Xueqi? And the Sect Master of the Underworld sect, Gu Zhen? I suspect that he's still alive and probably hiding somewhere in the Divine Hall," Jiang Wang asked courteously. He felt rather surprised when he did not see Xueqi's corpse. "They fled. I never thought that they hid a space gate in the Divine Hall," Jian Chen said with some regret. Rui Jin furrowed his brows slightly with that. He said, "In my dragon's domain, space gates can't form at all. How can they flee through a space gate? I'll go check out the place where they used the space gate." Rui Jin entered the ruined Divine Hall with that while Jian Chen and the others followed behind. In the room Xueqi and the old man had fled from, Rui Jin, Hong Lian, He Yu, Jian Chen, and the others stood around, examining the formation on the floor. This isn't a space gate. Hong Lian fixedly stared at the formation on the ground and realized that there was something wrong very quickly. Fixed space gates were similar to the formation on the ground, but there was an extremely clear difference between the two. Correct. This isn't a space gate, but an ancient teleportation formation. I never thought that something like this would be here. No wonder they managed to flee my dragon's domain, said Xueqi. An ancient teleportation formation? Jian Chen murmured. He was filled with curiosity, and even Jiang Wang and newbies became doubtful. Xueqi explained, I've only found information regarding the teleportation formation from my inherited memories. These formations only appeared in ancient times and were extremely valuable. Not only do they have similar uses as space gates, able to teleport a certain number of people or things, they're completely unaffected by the surrounding space, so they can be used even in heavily distorted or even shattered space. The teleportation distance is extremely far away as well and can break through all limitations of space. They are far more powerful than space gates. But according to my inherited memories, even in ancient times, these formations were extremely rare. No one knows their origins, and there was no one who could make them because the requirements for creating one were just far too great. You would need to reach an utmost mastery with formations and then possess an extremely great comprehension of space. No one could fulfill these two requirements in ancient times, especially in regard to the comprehension of space. Even the level of Saint Emperors was nowhere near enough. The teleportation formations from ancient times seem to have appeared out of nowhere and were slowly used up. I never thought I'd actually see one today. I never thought that the underworld sect would actually be in possession of such a valuable teleportation formation. Looks like they were not fated to die today. Jian Chen thought. After learning about the teleportation formation, he knew that it was impossible to stop them from getting away today. The former sect master of the underworld sect, Gu Zhan, is still likely to be alive. Looks like he left with Luo Qi. I just wonder if Gu Zhan has fully healed from his wounds and whether he's made any improvements in his cultivation. 1,000 years ago, Gu Zhan was an 8th heavenly layer Saint King, so if he did, that would be troublesome, Jiang Wang worried. Vice Sect Master, don't worry. Uncle Xiao has handed the Blood Divine Hall to me. I'll give you control of the Divine Hall, so even if the Sect Master makes a full recovery, he won't be able to do anything to you with the Divine Hall, said Jian Chen. They did not stick around for long, leaving the desert very quickly. All the space rings from the assassins were handed to Jian Chen as well, but Jian Chen only glanced through them. He passed them all to Jiang Wang after seeing that there was nothing that he needed in them. Although there were quite a decent amount of wealth in all the space rings, money no longer held any true value to Jian Chen. Jian Chen did not return to the base of the Blood Sword sect. After handing over the Divine Hall he had obtained from Uncle Xiao, he went to the Chongyang clan with Xueqi and the others. Since they had already confirmed that at least 2 Saint Kings had managed to flee, the Blood Sword sect needed to make preparations to protect themselves. Currently, they only had Jiang Wang as their Saint King, and he was only of the 3rd heavenly layer. He was not an opponent of any of the Saint Kings that managed to flee, so handing the Divine Hall to Jiang Wang could protect them against Luo Qi and Gu Zhan's revenge. Pondering over the problem after returning to the Chongyang clan, Jian Chen still ended up getting Yu Yu to watch over the flame mercenaries for a while. Although Yu Yu was still weak, he clearly felt much safer about it when he thought about Yu Yu's powerful master. Xueqi, Hong Lian, and He Yu had already helped him enough in recent times, so Jian Chen could not shamelessly request them to watch over the flame mercenaries. Jian Chen had sent out all the scouts of the Blood Sword sect as well, searching for the experts who had fled everywhere on the continent. Although Jian Chen knew that it would probably amount to nothing, he would not give up on the slightest hope. Every single day that the Saint Kings were still alive would be another day he was unable to be at peace. In recent times, the most popular topic of discussions across the continent was the Blood Sword sect. The Blood Sword sect that had vanished for 1,000 years had actually reappeared. Not only did it draw a great deal of attention from various organizations, the sect even did something that shocked countless people. All the hidden bases of the underworld sect scattered across the continent were found by the Blood Sword sect and washed with blood. An even more shocking piece of news swept through the continent closely after that. The underworld sect that had existed for over 100,000 years on the continent had actually been wiped out by the Blood Sword sect, stunning countless people. The disturbance created by the news was so great that even Mercenary City and the 3 great empires were affected. After all, The Blood Sword sect was an organization equivalent to an ancient clan. Coupled with Houston, who was at the great perfection of Saint King, they would be an absolute existence even among ancient clans. It was impossible for such a great organization to not cause a disturbance after it suddenly returned. Jian Chen did not pay attention to the commotion on the continent while he stayed in the Chongyang clan. He was currently with his second aunt, Yu Fengyan, in a pavilion within the garden. Yu Fengyan's eyes were red and swollen. Streaks of tears covered her face. She constantly used her silk handkerchief to wipe away more tears. She had missed her daughter for many years now. Other than returning once when Jian Chen had been forced off the continent, she had not received any news of Chongyang Mingyue since, which made Yu Fengyan worry since she only had one daughter. She basically spent all her time thinking about her daughter, and she had become much more haggard after all these years of longing. Yu Fengyan's yearning for her daughter reached an unprecedented peak with Chongyang Hu's return. She finally came and found Jian Chen after no longer able to hold it in. "Xiangtian, I know you're a famed expert of the continent now, but I miss Mingyue far too much. Can you take me to see Mingyue? I'm begging you. I just want to catch a single glance of her and then I'll be happy," sobbed Yu Fengyan. She was extremely sapph. Chapter 12:19. Proceeding to the Ice Goddess Hall, 2. Jian Chen felt rather pained when he saw just how distressed Yu Fengyan was. His second aunt held an extremely important position in his heart, even greater than his own father. This was because when he was young, Yu Fengyan cared for him the second most behind his own mother. Even his father's care was nowhere near how much Yu Fengyan cared for him, especially after he had undergone the Saint's test. Once he had been tested to be unable to use Saint Force and was labeled as a cripple. Chongyang Ba visited him even less. Back then, only by Yun Tian, Yu Fengjiang, and Chongyang Mingyue out of the entire clan cared for him. Jian Chen could feel exactly how Yu Fengyan felt when he watched her in so much heart-aching pain. He could also sense her feeling of helplessness. Ignoring the fact that the Arctic Ice Goddess Hall was not on the Tianyuan continent and was extremely far away. Just the icy climate there was enough to prevent Heaven Saint Masters from getting anywhere close. Even fire-attributed Heaven Saint Masters could be frozen into an ice cube, so only Saint rulers could survive there. Although the clan now had around a dozen Saint rulers and several Saint kings, every single one of them possessed great statuses. Even the patriarch of the clan, Chongyang Ba, needed to greet them politely when he saw them. Let alone Yu Fengyan, who was only one of Chongyang Ba's many wives. On the surface, Yu Fengyan was the second madam of the clan and possessed great status, but she was nothing in front of the people who had broken away from the Protector clan. Without any doubt, requesting one of the Saint rulers to take her to the Arctic was an absurd dream with her current status. She did not even have the right to meet them. As a result, Yu Fengyan could only find Jian Chen. She had already begun to treat Jian Chen as her only hope to see her daughter again. Jian Chen pondered the request. Although some people had managed to flee from the underworld sect, including the former sect master who was even more powerful than Luo Qi, he was not exactly helpless against them. At the same time, it had been such a long time since he had last seen his sister that he missed her as well. Jian Chen made up his mind with that. He said, "Auntie, don't be so sad. Let me organize some things and then I'll take you to the Arctic to go look for sister." "Really? Xiangtian, are you really going to take me to see Mingyue?" Yu Fengyan was overjoyed. She grabbed Jian Chen's hands excitedly. She knew that if Jian Chen turned her down, she would probably never see her daughter ever again unless Chongyang Mingyue returned herself. Jian Chen nodded. "Of course I'm going to. Auntie, go rest for a while. I'll go organize some things immediately, and then I'll take you with me to the Arctic." Jian Chen left the garden and made his way to the back courtyards of the clan. However, if the Saint Kings choose to attempt an assassination, I can only protect this city. I am helpless to help the royal family of the kingdom. Considering the fact that your fiancée is a part of the royal family and is the daughter of the king, I'll get Yun Xiao to guard the palace. Yun Xiao might only be at the 5th heavenly layer, but he knows quite a few secret techniques. Ordinary Saint Kings are not his opponent in a fight, Chongyang Zhu Xiao said amicably. He treated Jian Chen with great importance, so he completely considered everything related to Jian Chen in this matter. Jian Chen completely stopped worrying after listening to what Chongyang Zhu Xiao had to say. Hesitating slightly, he asked again, "Great-grandfather, May I ask how much you know about the Arctic Ice Goddess Hall? Chongyang Zhu Xiao frowned slightly when he heard the name Arctic Ice Goddess Hall. Only after a moment of silence did he say, "All of my understanding of the Ice Goddess Hall comes from the ancient records of the Protector clan, which all originate from the ancient times, personally written by Saint Emperors. I only know that the organization is extremely powerful, such that even the 4 sovereigns from the ancient times did not venture there. No one knows when the Ice Goddess Hall appeared, but they never interfere with the matters of the continent, nor do they ever appear on the continent. No one else even knows of their existence other than Mercenary City and the 10 Protector clans. Their descent over a decade ago was the first time in the past million years, and it was all recorded by the Protector clans." Chongyang Zhu Xiao suddenly stared at Jian Chen sternly. He asked with a heavy voice, "Xiang'er, do you plan on visiting the Ice Goddess Hall?" "Correct. My sister is there and I want to visit her," Jian Chen confessed. Chongyang Zhu Xiao stayed silent for a while before replying with a heavy voice. "Although I've never been to the Ice Goddess Hall, I do know that it is extremely terrifying, because every single record from the Saint Emperor ancestors have warned the descendants to never offend them or try look for them. They must possess some terrifying person, but after so many years, that person feared by our Saint Emperor ancestors must have passed away. However, I still hope you can reconsider your choice. It's best if you don't go. Since the Ice Goddess Hall is so mysterious in power at the same time, why did they make my sister their holy maiden? I don't know if they're scheming something, but you're right. No matter how powerful that person was, even if they had already surpassed Saint Emperor, it's impossible for them to live for so long, so they can't be as terrifying as the past." "I need to go," replied Jian Chen. "Since you've already made up your mind, I won't stop you. But do be careful." Chongyang Zhu Xiao gave up on stopping Jian Chen, seeing how he could not persuade him. Jian Chen left the back courtyards before going to find Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu again. Jian Chen needed to be cautious with the mysterious and powerful Ice Goddess Hall, so in order to deal with unforeseen events, he ended up deciding on bringing the 3 of them with him. Chapter 12:20. Frozen statues. The Arctic was to the north of the Tian-Yuan continent. It was not a part of the landmass, but snowy plains that were separated by the vast sea. The climate there was freezing, and the environment was horrible. Blizzards would erupt from time to time that even Heaven's Saint Masters could not withstand. There was also a white haze that filled the sky, which would quickly blow away from time to time as well, leaving behind white streaks in the air. This was the terrifying streams of coldness that were extremely active in the Arctic. It was said that they could even freeze steel into an icy mess. The space of the Arctic was unstable, so it was impossible to arrive there through a space gate. With his second aunt Yu Fengyan, Jian Chen, newbies, Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu passed through a space gate to arrive above the ocean near the Arctic. They then flew toward the plains of ice. Although they had yet to set foot on the icy land, the weather was already extremely cold. The sky was hazy white while the seawater was freezing with huge blocks of ice floating in it. Most of them were Saint Kings, so they were unaffected by the chilliness that was enough to freeze ordinary people into ice statues. Only the weak Yu Fengyan paled because of the cold. Although she wore thick clothing made from fox fur, she still trembled. However, Yu Fengyan was filled with excitement even if that was the case. She felt warm inside over the fact that she would be able to see her daughter. She was willing to go through anything to see her. They arrived on the icy plains very quickly. The temperature was extremely low and the icy wind whistled across the land, cutting at them like sharp blades. Even as Saint Kings, they felt their skin tingle. The wind there could cut Earth Saint Masters into mincemeat easily, so it was impossible for ordinary people to survive there. Crack, crack. With the soft sounds, Jian Chen, newbies, Rui Jin, and He Yu's clothes rapidly began to freeze. In just a few seconds, they became snow-white as a thin layer of frost covered them. The next moment, the 4 of them trembled slightly and easily shook off the frost that had covered them. Their faces remained the same as before, as if the coldness here was nothing. Yu Fengyan had already arrived beside Hong Lian. The streams of coldness were unable to approach Hong Lian due to the waves of heat she gave off. The frigid air turned to nothing before the heat. "Senior Hong Lian, please look after my aunt," Jian Chen said to Hong Lian. Hong Lian was a scorching divine phoenix, a sovereign of fire, so even as an ordinary person, Yu Fengyan would not suffer at all by sticking by her side. Hong Lian nodded slightly. She wrapped her hand around Yu Fengyan and continued on into the snowy plains. The waves of heat from her were warm and gentle. Not only did they pose no harm to Yu Fengyan, they even made her feel like she was basking in the sun. They flew at a low altitude across the snowy plains, making their way to the depths. As they traveled, the temperature plummeted even more. The chilly wind there was already enough to threaten Heaven's Saint Master. Unless they could control fire-attributed Saint Force, even those at the sixth cycle would be cut to pieces by the sharp, cold wind. The streams of coldness that flowed past from time to time could turn one of them into an ice statue in a single moment. They flew for 7 days across the icy plains and arrived at the depths. The cold air forced Jian Chen and newbies to carefully find a solution to deal with it. A thin layer of energy coated their bodies for protection while 3-inch-long ice crystals constantly formed on the surface of He Yu and Rui Jin's bodies, which they would shake to pieces every once in a while. However, the crystals would form again after just a few seconds, and they would have to shake them off again. They had done this for several days already. Yu Fengyan was coated by a layer of flames, so she was unaffected. Just the waves of heat from Hong Lian were not enough to fend off the cold streams of air in the depths. At this moment, the icy plains suddenly began to billow, producing ghost-like wails. A large mass of hazy whiteness quickly flew toward them from right ahead. "Be careful," Jian Chen called out, immediately using the illusory flash to dodge. Newbies, Rui Jin, He Yu, and the others did not fall behind either, avoiding the stream of white haze. Hong Lian called out and the brightness from the flames on her exploded. The roaring flames surrounded her and Yu Fengyan with terrifying heat. The heat was enough to melt steel beams in a single moment, but it could only guard the surrounding radius of a meter from the coldness. Hong Lian's mastery over flames had already reached a level of perfection. She could control the heat of the flames as she wished, so even when engulfed by the terrifying flames, Yu Fengyan did not feel hot at all. Instead, she found them to be extremely warm since they were unable to harm her in any way. The stream of whiteness passed by very quickly. Jian Chen, He Yu, and Rui Jin all successfully avoided it, but Newbies was struck by a stream in the end. The stream of whiteness was only a fist-sized ball of coldness, but it possessed unbelievable power. Newbies turned into an ice statue in a single moment after being struck. Newbies began to shine with a bright, golden light. He had been immobilized by the ice, so he was currently trying to break free with all he had. He produced a few soft cracks in the ice. With his strength as a third heavenly layer Saint King, Newbies was actually unable to break free in a short amount of time. Jian Chen stepped over and instantly arrived before him, hurling a punch at Newbies. With a muffled sound, Jian Chen's full-powered punch failed to shatter the ice. Only a tiny crack appeared. Jian Chen was not surprised. He had witnessed the power of the icy streams long ago. Without saying anything, he immediately hurled another punch. Bang! The cracks expanded once again with the sound, enveloping the ice in all directions like a web. Jian Chen punched a third time. Finally, after working from the inside and outside, Newbies broke free with a rumble. Newbies radiated with coldness after breaking free. His face had become pale, and he could not help but shiver, so cold. The great Newbies is going to be frozen to death. Be carefully. Don't get frozen next time. The streams of coldness here are just far too terrifying. If it were any other ordinary third heavenly layer Saint King, they definitely wouldn't have been able to break free without help from another person. They would have been frozen to death on the spot. Jian Chen was very stern. The Arctic plains were far more terrifying than he had expected. Where they were right now could already threaten Saint Kings. Jian Chen's group continued on. 4 hours later, they had moved another 1,000 kilometers. They could no longer endure the coldness with their bodies alone, so all of them now possessed a layer of energy protecting them. They had become much more cautious than before, and even Rui Jin, He Yu, and Hong Lian dared not to be careless. Jian Chen had also made up his mind about sending Yu Fengyan into the Saint Artifact at any moment in time. This was because the dangers here were already enough to threaten them. After passing over an icy mountain, all of their expressions hardened. 1,000 meters in front of them, several human-shaped statues appeared. They arrived before the ice statues. They were lifelike, and they could clearly see the faces of the sculptures. Every single one of them held different poses, and they could even see a terrifying gaze in the eyes of each statue. Other than that, Every single statue radiated with a vague, chilling pressure. Rue Jin, Hong Lian, He Yu, and newbies all gradually became solemn. Their faces were completely serious. With their knowledge and experience, they could obviously tell that the statues had not been created from ice but from people that had been frozen alive. These people were all Saint Emperors when they were alive, Rue Jin said in a heavy voice. His expression was extremely stern. Saint Emperors were already existences that stood at the very peak of the Tianyuan continent. They all felt extremely astounded by the fact that such powerful people had been frozen into statues here. These people were even more powerful than the human Saint Emperor when they were still alive, Hong Lian added in a heavy tone. She was obviously referring to the Path Lord of Carnal Desires by human Saint Emperor. Jian Chen shivered inside. He had learned that the Ice Goddess Hall was very powerful long ago and was viewed as an extremely terrifying existence. But only now did he discover that the hall was far more terrifying than he had ever thought. There's more up ahead. Newbies cried out as he pointed ahead in disbelief. With that, everyone turned to look. 5 huge magical beasts appeared 10 kilometers away, also frozen into lifelike sculptures of ice. Those are Class 9 magical beasts. He Yu cried out. He was astounded. Chapter 12:21. They arrived in front of the frozen Class 9 magical beasts next. All the magical beasts were extremely large, and from afar, they seemed like tall structures. 3 of them were felines, 10 meters tall and 50 or 60 meters long. The 4th one was a giant, 2-headed python that sat there. It was 3 meters thick. The 5th magical beast as an unknown mutated beast of antiquity. Its 2 huge wings were extended, covering a distance of several hundred meters. The final magical beast was a 100-meter-tall war beast. It carried a white bone club on its shoulder. Although it had already been frozen into a statue, its wild presence could still be clearly sensed. Jian Chen and newbies looked at each other as shocked filled their gazes. Seeing several frozen human Saint Emperors was already stunning enough. They had never thought that they would see another 6 frozen Class 9 magical beasts. Class 9 magical beasts stood at the same level as Saint Emperors. Even in ancient times, Class 9 magical beasts were apex existences along with Saint Emperors when ignoring the 4 great champions. They were supreme. Yet, so many human Saint Emperors and Class 9 magical beasts had been frozen to death on the icy plains, which really affected their thoughts. When did Saint Emperors become so fragile where they would end up freezing to death from the cold? If this news made it to the Tianyuan continent, it would be explosive, able to shake up all the experts on the continent. However, this exact scene just happened to reflect the terrifying power of the Ice Goddess Hall. Saint Emperors reigned supreme on the continent. No matter what identity they possessed before they died, they deserve a corresponding amount of respect. I'll take these Saint Emperors back and bury them on the Tianyuan continent, Jian Chen said in sorrow. He felt sorry for the horrible fate the Saint Emperors had suffered. They were mighty Saint Emperors, yet they met their end by freezing to death in this snowy land. There were not a lot of people throughout history who had suffered such a miserable end. Jian Chen arrived before the Saint Emperor's statues. He wanted to put them in his space ring to take them back. Unfortunately, the icy Saint Emperors had fused with the ground, so they were stuck there. Jian Chen pulled out his Emperor armament without hesitation and swung it at the ground. The ice was far tougher than he had imagined. After swinging the weapon a few times with full force, he only left behind a shallow mark. After swinging over 100 times, the frozen Saint Emperor was finally separated from the ground. However, at that moment, a crack rang out. A chink had suddenly appeared in the ice, which expanded at an unbelievable rate. It covered the entire person in just a few seconds. Bang! With a gentle sound, the entire statue shattered. There was no blood at all. The Saint Emperor's flesh had already been frozen. I am unwilling. I am filled with unwillingness for falling here. It's actually Urton. He's the ruler of the Beast God continent 500,000 years ago. It said that he was the strongest magical beast, having reached the peak of Class 9. No one was his opponent among the humans and the magical beasts. I never thought he ended up dying here, newbies cried out. Chapter 12:22. Chongyang Mingyue Jian Chen trembled inside when he heard that. After examining the frozen middle-aged man again, he felt exceptionally shocked inside. Even the ruler of the beast god continent, having reached the apex of Saint Emperor and only a single step away from the supreme origin realm, had frozen to death here as well. The shock that it brought Jian Chen was far greater than seeing the 30-odd Saint Emperors and Class 9 magical beasts earlier. The power of peak Saint Emperors was incomparable to regular Saint Emperors. The difference was akin to the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler and the 1st heavenly layer of Saint King or Saint Kings at great perfection, and those who had only recently became Saint Kings. Although they belonged to the same level of cultivation, the disparity was enormous. Not only was Erton a peak Saint Emperor, he was a beast of antiquity as well. He was even more powerful than human peak Saint Emperors, and it would be true to call him the strongest beneath the origin realm. Yet, even someone like Erton could not avoid being frozen into a statue. Not only this made Jian Chen and newbies shiver inside, even Rue Jin, He Yu and Hong Lian felt the same. 500,000 years ago, Erton was invincible. There was no one who could defeat him, but he actually met his end on these icy plains and did not fall in battle. This place is just too terrifying, newbies said in shock. He was shivering inside. His fear for this place had become much heavier after seeing Erton's frozen corpse. It was not just newbies. Even Jian Chen felt a sliver of dread. The icy plains were far too terrifying. Just the icy climate was enough to freeze Saint Emperors to death. No wonder the Saint Emperor ancestors of the Protector clans were so fearful of the ice goddess Hall. Rue Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu looked at each other and became extremely solemn. Even before Saint Emperors, they had never shown such a serious expression before. Newbies bowed deeply to Erton before continuing on with Jian Chen and the others. They did not touch Erton's corpse, not even the space ring on his finger. With what they had experienced earlier, they all knew that both Erton and his space ring had been reduced to ice after so many years. His entire body would turn into an icy mess after the layer of ice on the surface was destroyed. Everyone felt very heavy inside after witnessing what had happened to Erton. They did not say anything and continued on in a straight path. After traveling for another 100 kilometers, newbies could no longer endure it any longer as the weakest. He was sucked into the artifact space by Jian Chen. If it were not for Jian Chen's chaotic body and the chaotic force, he probably would not have been able to last until now either. The coldness had reached an extremely terrifying level where even the Saint Force of Saint Kings could be frozen. The only reason why Rue Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu could continue on was because they used their own great powers along with the origin energy armor. However, they knew very well that the coldness was far weaker than several hundreds of thousand years ago. Otherwise, they would not have been able to make it further than Erton with their strength as Saint Kings. They might have already been frozen into lifelike statues before they had even seen the Saint Emperor statues. They traveled another half a day, but they only traveled 500 kilometers during that time. They were obstructed by a layer of boundless cold mist. The mist seemed to form a natural barrier, stopping them in their path. "This mist is something else," Hong Lian said heavily as she stared at the mist after they all had stopped. It was illogical for mist to exist at such a terrifyingly cold temperature. Mist was fine droplets of water, yet it was impossible for water to exist in this wasteland because all of it should have frozen into ice that was tougher than steel. "You guys stay here first. I'll go in and have a look," said Hong Lian. The flames on her glowed much brighter and the scorching godfire hairpin appeared in her hands. She carefully made her way into the region of mist. As soon as she stepped into the mist, a hissing sound was immediately produced from the contact of mist and flames. However, the mist was far more terrifying than anyone had imagined. Hong Lian only lasted a few seconds before her roaring flames were suppressed by the mist. Within the next few seconds, the flames had been forced back into her body. The coldness rapidly drew closer to Hong Lian, where even her fire-red feathermail became coated by a thin layer of white frost. Hong Lian paled in fright. She had realized long ago that the mist was nowhere near as simple as it seemed, but in no way did she ever expect it to be so terrifying. Without holding back, white flames surged from her hairpin, engulfing her in a single moment. The power of the white flames was incomparable to the power of the red flames. As soon as they appeared, the ice crystals on her melted and even the mist around her was forced back by 3 inches. Hong Lian was relieved. She continued on as she protected herself with her hairpin. However, the coldness in the mist increases as she went deeper inside. Taking just the first step, the mist grew half an inch closer to her, now 2.5 inches away. When she took a second step, The mist grew another half an inch closer, now 2 inches away. With the third step, it was 1.5 inches away, and with the fourth, it was only an inch away from her. Hong Lian gently sighed as she looked at the white haziness that showed no signs of ending. She carefully backed off. She knew if she took a fifth step, the coldness would end up pressing against her skin and she would be frozen into a statue. Even with her origin energy weapon, it might not be enough to keep her safe. You should all see as well. The mist is far more terrifying than we imagined. Even I can only take a few steps. You can't make it through it, Hong Lian said with some dejection. She reigned supreme with fire and could conquer the cold. However, even the mist did not open a path for her even after she had brandished her origin energy weapon. She was unable to lighten up no matter what over this. Jian Chen frowned as well. He could obviously see just how terrifying the mist was, but it seemed to form a barrier stopping them. It was boundless, so if they could not pass through it, they could only end their journey there, let alone find the Ice Goddess Hall. At the same time, in a room completely constructed from ice, a lady, who seemed to be around 20 years of age, sat on a white piece of ice as she cultivated. The lady was extremely pretty, such that her beauty could outshine the moon. She was completely snow-white, not only her hair, but her eyebrows and eyelashes as well. The lady was Chongyang Mingyue, who had left the clan many years ago. Suddenly, Chongyang Mingyue opened her eyes. Her face lit up in surprise, and she excitedly said, "Brother, it's my brother. I can see my brother." With that, she leaped off the ice and ran out of the room as a white blur. There was a room completely constructed from snow and ice, and all the decor in there was created from ice crystals. They shone brightly and were extremely pretty. Although the room was wonderfully decorated, it was all snow white. There was only white, and the temperature there had also reached an unbelievably low level. Compared to the temperature in the room, an eternal cavern of ice was like a scorching volcano. A person clad in white armor sat on a bed of ice in the room. Her eyes were closed and the armor completely covered her, only revealing her eyes. Even her face was concealed. At this moment, the door to the room forcefully swung open. Chongyang Mingyue ran in with bare feet in joy as she urgently said, "Protector Xueqi, I can see my brother. I can see my brother. My brother's come, and he's been obstructed by the profound ice chi outside. Let him in quick." Her voice was filled with excitement. Perhaps due to being overjoyed, a faint red flush had appeared on her pale white face. Protector Xueqi slowly opened her eyes. She could not help but gently sigh when she saw how excited Chongyang Mingyue was. She said, "Your Majesty, can't you just forget about them?" The them she had mentioned was not just Jian Chen. It included all the people in the Chongyang clan and all the people Chongyang Mingyue once knew. Chongyang Mingyue became angered. "Protector Xueqi, I can never forget my brother. He will always be my brother. So hurry up and let him in." Sigh, Protector Xueqi exhaled. Helplessness filled her eyes. Chapter 1223. Reuniting Mother and Daughter, 1. Jian Chen, Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu camped for quite some time outside the hazy mist. All of them frowned, but none of them could do anything to the terrifying mist, including Rui Jin. Rui Jin and Hong Lian used countless secret techniques of their clans during that time, but they were all useless. Even Jian Chen's presence was unable to penetrate through the mist. As soon as his presence entered it, the chilling coldness would attack his mind by following his presence, stunning him to the point where he no longer dared to make any future attempts. "Looks like this is as far as we can go," Jian Chen said in a heavy voice. He was extremely disappointed. He had never thought that they would fail to even catch a single glimpse of the Ice Goddess Hall despite bringing such a powerful party. At this moment, the mist ahead began to churn violently, slowly parting open. Very soon, a 3-meter-wide path formed in front of the four of them, and at the end of the path was a snow-white and bright glacial world, not a hazy mist. They all looked at each other after the passageway suddenly appeared. They had never thought that the mist that had stopped them from traveling further would create a path. They were in disbelief. Suddenly, Jian Chen seemed to think of something. His eyes immediately lit up and he said, "I understand. This layer of mist must be controlled by someone, and the controller probably knows of our arrival, which is why they formed a tunnel for us to get through." However, Jian Chen could not help but think about how his sister had become the holy maiden of the Ice Goddess Hall. He guessed that Chongyang Mingyue possessed quite the status within the Ice Goddess Hall, but he was uncertain if the formation of the tunnel had anything to do with her. With the tunnel, the four of them gave up on the thought of returning. They then carefully passed through it. The tunnel in the mist was 1,000 meters long. The four of them passed through it very soon and arrived in a region beyond the mist. The environment past the mist was like heaven compared to the climate outside. Although it was still a world of ice and snow, the landscape was pretty, picturesque like a lovely drawing. The surrounding glaciers were crystal clear, like huge mountains of crystal. If the region outside the mist was like the churning sea, this would be a flat and peaceful part of the ocean. There was no terrifying wind or any icy temperatures that could freeze Saint Kings to death. Outside, even regular Saint Kings would struggle to survive, yet even people as weak as Earth Saint Masters could move around freely here. Although the two places were only separated by 1,000 meters of mist, they felt like they were two completely different worlds. Is this the Ice Goddess Hall? Suddenly, Heiyu pointed ahead and asked. They looked to where he was pointing, and 20 kilometers away, a crystal palace that seemed to have been carved from ice stood quietly on the icy plains. It gave off a respectful presence, as if it had stood through many years of wind and rain. Although it was grand and beautiful, the four of them could clearly feel that it was filled with the ancient presence of time. The crystal palace seemed to have stood all by itself for countless years, while the ancient presence was far heavier than any item they had ever seen that had managed to survive through the ages. This must be the Ice Goddess Hall. We've finally arrived, Jian Chen mumbled as he stared at the divine hall up ahead. His voice was filled with some excitement, and he instinctively began to walk over in a hurry. The four of them stopped in front of the Ice Goddess Hall very soon. Only by standing in front of the structure could they feel its grandeur. They felt like ants standing before an elephant. The feeling did not seem to linger around the building, but from the vast presence of the structure. Dazed, they suddenly felt a different impression, as if they were not facing against the pretty Ice Goddess Hall, but the infinite cosmos. A person in silver-white armor stood silently at the top of the structure. Her armor covered every part of her, including her face. Only two icy cold eyes were revealed, but it was still possible to tell that she was female from the shape of her body. She stood there unmoving like an ice statue, nor did she give off any presence. She seemed to have completely fused with the surroundings, becoming a part of the world. Protector Xueqi glanced over the four of them with her emotionless eyes, but to them, she seemed to be transparent. None of them discovered her existence. If it were not for the fact that they were in a world of ice and snow, probably a thick layer of ice would have formed in the radius of several thousand meters. Even bodies of water would end up freezing. Chongyang Mingyue was pained. Brother, it's my profound ice body. My profound ice body has not fully matured yet, so I can't control the profound ice chi that I radiate. How have you become like this, sister? What is all this about? Jian Chen asked rather urgently. In his memory, his sister had never been like this before. It's a long story. I'll tell you about it in detail later, but I heard from Protector Xueqi that you came across a few problems a few years ago. Are some large clans or sects bullying you? Don't worry. Once my profound ice body fully matures, I'll go to the Tianyuan continent and teach all those people a lesson, Chongyang Mingyue firmly promised. She cared for Jian Chen very much, as if he was an eternal child in her eyes. Jian Chen suddenly felt extremely warm inside. Thinking back to his youth, wasn't this exactly how his sister watched over him? She did not want him to be bullied at all, and his brother Chongyang Ku had been secretly punished by her several times. What she did not know was whenever Chongyang Ku tried to bully him, he would not only fail, but end up getting the short end of the stick himself. He had never succeeded in benefiting at Jian Chen's expense. Has mother been well? And how have father, first aunt, third aunt, and fourth aunt been? What about big brother and Uncle Chong? I actually really want to go home. I miss mother so much, but I can't right now. Protected Xueqi won't let me, Chongyang Mingyue said in a rather depressed manner. Her joy from seeing Jian Chen just now gradually faded away as worry filled her face. She wanted to go home far too much. Jian Chen suddenly snapped back to his sense as soon as he heard about Yu Fengyan. He immediately retreated to Hong Lian's side and released Yu Fengyan from the saint artifact. Originally, Jian Chen only planned on letting her out, but newbies ended up coming out as well when he heard that they had arrived at the Ice Goddess Hall. Although the coldness was much less than outside, it was still not something that Yu Fengyan could endure as a great saint master. Fortunately, Hong Lien's was there to help out, keeping the low temperature at bay with her flames. Mother! Chongyang Mingyue became so excited to the point that she could not express her emotions properly when she saw Yu Fengyan. She charged up without thinking, but she stopped after just 2 steps. Tears rolled down her face as she slowly backed off in pain. She knew just how powerful the profound ice chi she radiated with was. It was not something Yu Fengyan could endure. Yu Fengyan became stunned the moment she saw Chongyang Mingyue. Tears poured uncontrollably from her eyes while an endless number of thoughts bounced around. She bit her lip tightly as she stared at Chongyang Mingyue and could not help but tremble violently. Mingyue! Yu Fengyan called out the next moment and quickly ran toward Chongyang Mingyue. There was only one thing she wanted to do right now, and that was to tightly embrace her daughter who she had thought of daily. How could Jian Chen let Yu Fengyan run over? As soon as she began to move, she was blocked by Jian Chen. Xiangtian, let me through. Don't block me. Xiangtian, I'm begging you. Let me through. Yu Fengyan struggled in the space frozen by Jian Chen as she pleaded through her sobs. Jian Chen's heart ached inside. If he didn't need to, he really would not have stopped Yu Fengyan, but he was considering her safety right now. No matter how reluctant he was, he needed to stop her. Aunt, sister's profound ice body radiates a terrifying coldness. You can't go over, or you'll be frozen into an ice statue, Jian Chen bitterly explained. I don't care. Even if I freeze to death, I don't care. Xiangtian, I'm begging you, don't stop me. Just let me through. I just want to get a good look at Mingyue, Yu Fengyan sobbed. The 3 of them were utterly astounded by the fact that there were still existences that had surpassed Saint Emperor in this age that lacked Saint Emperors. Chongyang Mingyue looked at Jian Chen and Yu Fengyan, reluctant to leave. She said, Mother, brother, I will return. Don't worry, Mother, once my profound ice body matures, I'll definitely visit home. Yu Fengyan felt a stabbing pain inside now that she was about to part with her beloved daughter. She looked at Chongyang Mingyue's face in reluctance as tears rolled down her face. Brother, if you ever come across anything you can't deal with in the future, come look for me. No matter what it is, I can solve it for you. I heard from Protector Xueqi that you've already become very powerful and are now a Saint King, but don't look down on me. I'm also a Saint King and at the 9th heavenly layer. You're not my opponent right now. Chongyang Mingyue faintly smiled with that. It seemed a little like she was boasting. What? You're a 9th heavenly layer Saint King now? Jian Chen was shocked and disbelief was plastered across his face. Rue Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu became astounded as well. Remember to come visit me in a year's time. I have a gift for you. Also, these icy plains are the territory of Protector Xueqi. She'll know every single thing that happens here. I've ordered her to bring you over as long as you are standing on the icy plains. With that, Chongyang Mingyue disappeared inside the divine hall. Mingyue, I'll be waiting for you to return home. Cultivate well, Yu Fengyan called out when the door had closed. Aunt, sister is very well here. She'll return without much longer. Don't be so sorrowful, Jian Chen comforted. Yu Fengyan clearly understood that it was a great fortune for Chongyang Mingyue to stay in this icy land, so she calmed down very quickly. All the worry and anxiety in her heart was rapidly vanishing without her knowing after personally seeing that Chongyang Mingyue was well. Some light returned to her eyes and her mood took a drastic turn for the better. Jian Chen looked toward Protector Xueqi and clasped his hands. Senior, there is still one matter that confuses me. May I ask why my sister has become the Holy Maiden? Please enlighten me. Jian Chen was extremely curiously as to why Chongyang Mingyue had become the Holy Maiden of the Ice Goddess Hall. However, he also knew that probably even Chongyang Mingyue had no idea how to answer the question, which was why he asked Protector Xueqi. He had already learned from Chongyang Mingyue that she was the most powerful person in the Ice Goddess Hall. Her strength was unfathomable. She stood supreme in the organization with everyone else working beneath her. You have no right to know about matters concerning Her Majesty. If it weren't for the fact that you were siblings with Her Majesty, you lot would have frozen to death on the icy plains long ago. How would you still have been able to make it here? Protector Xueqi's voice was extremely cold, as if she was completely emotionless. Shortly afterward, she turned to Rue Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu. She looked at them like ants and said, "Tell me, where did you obtain the saint artifacts that contain a sliver of origin energy?" The three of them looked at each other and they felt an ill omen. They hesitated slightly but still ended up responding. "They were given to us by the ancient winged tiger god." "The winged tiger god," mumbled Protector Xueqi. She said, "So it really was that beast. I never thought he'd be far more complicated than I had imagined. Actually able to deliver saint artifacts here without me noticing." Protector Xueqi fell silent for some time. She pondered for a while before continuing. "The saint artifacts on the three of you shouldn't have appeared in this world. Seeing how you're related to Her Majesty, I won't make things difficult for you. Hand over the saint artifacts, and I'll destroy them." The three of them changed in expression with that. The Sacred Dragon's armor and the Sacred Dragon's sword were clan treasures of the Dragon Clan, while the 9 refined Godfire Feathermail and Scorching Godfire Hairpin were clan treasures of the Scorching Divine Phoenix Clan. These items held significant value to them, so how could they just hand them over? "Senior, you say you want to destroy the clan treasures of the Dragon Clan and Phoenix Clan as soon as you start talking. Aren't you going overboard?" Jian Chen was furious as well. He spoke with a dark expression. "Correct. The treasures are even more important than our lives. It's impossible if you want us to hand them over so you can destroy them," Rue Jin angrily replied. Even though he knew that Protector Xueqi was someone who had surpassed Saint Emperor, he still showed now fear. "The only way for you to destroy the clan treasures of the Phoenix Clan is by stepping over my dead body." Hong Lian spoke firmly as well. Her eyes burned with red light since she was furious as well. "I would obviously do nothing if your clan treasures were still how they were originally, but now they've stopped being the same. They're saint artifacts that don't belong to this world, so I will obviously destroy them. I'll let the three of you choose. Hand them over to me and I'll let you leave without a single scratch, or stay here with the saint artifacts," said Protector Xueqi slowly. "Humph. You've said in such a firm manner that Senior Rue Jin and Hong Lian's clan treasures were no longer the same as before. Have you personally seen the treasures before?" Jian Chen coldly asked, but he was extremely nervous inside. Rue Jin and Hong Lian became extremely ugly. They both had inherited memories, so they obviously understood the treasures very well. They understood that they were indeed very indifferent from how they were before. They had already discovered this the moment they had obtained them. He Yu could not help but draw his origin energy machete, and a layer of armor appeared on his at the same time. He furiously said, "I don't care who you are, but it's impossible if you want to destroy our origin energy treasures. So what if you've surpassed Saint Emperor? I'd like to see just how powerful these sovereign-like existences are." A vast presence erupted from He Yu as he poured surging energy into his machete, allowing it to glow bright. Powerful blade chi filled the surroundings. He Yu knew that Protector Xueqi was extremely powerful, having surpassed Saint Emperor, so he used all his strength. Protector Xueqi looked at He Yu coldly and in disdain. She did nothing, but the next moment, a layer of clear ice crystals quickly spread up from his feet. The crystals of ice moved extremely quickly, coating his entire body in the blink of an eye. Equipped with both the origin energy armor and weapon, He Yu had been frozen into a statue of ice before he could even deal a single attack. Chapter 1226. Trapped at the Ice Goddess Hall, Rue Jin and Hong Lian were immediately shocked when they saw He Yu freeze into a statue in the blink of an eye. He Yu was protected by the origin energy armor and possessed an origin energy weapon for offense. He could even stand against Saint Emperors without suffered defeat, yet he was so fragile before Protector Xueqi, having frozen without being able to resist at all. They had finally witnessed the terror of someone who had surpassed Saint Emperor. Jian Chen and newbies stared at the frozen He Yu in shock as well while their hearts churned inside. Yu Fengyan could also tell that the three of them had fallen out with Protector Xueqi. She immediately became nervous. She knew that they had helped her quite a lot for her to stand here today, so she was obviously extremely unwilling for anything to happen to them. In her opinion, the reason why the three of them had traveled so far to come to the Ice Goddess Hall was related to her. If the three of them were in trouble because of her, she would be filled with remorse. "Senior, is it possible to let Senior Rue Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu go on Mingyue's behalf?" Yu Fengyan called out. She really did not wish to see the three of them remain trapped here because of her. Protector Xueqi's eyes were cold and completely emotionless, like ice that would never melt. Although she had heard Yu Fengyan's request, she did nothing. She did not even glance at her, completely ignoring her. In reality, Yu Fengyan definitely would not have been able to stand there unharmed if it were not for the fact that she was the mother of the Holy Maiden. Are you going to have your saint artifacts destroyed? Or will you be staying here forever? Protector Xueqi coldly asked Rui Jin and Hong Lian. Humph, even if I know we're not your opponent, we'll never hand over the clan treasures. The only way for you to destroy them is by doing it over my dead body. Rui Jin coldly replied before beginning to glow all over with golden light. The dazzling light of the sacred dragon's armor and sword covered his body as terrifying ripples of energy pulsed around him. A packed layer of golden dragon scales quickly appeared as well, enveloping his entire body. Even his hands turned into huge dragon claws. At the same time, fire surged into the sky beside him. With a clear phoenix's cry, Hong Lian turned into a giant phoenix that was several dozen meters long and surrounded by roaring flames. The 9 refined godfire feathermail covered her body as the scorching godfire hairpin hovered above her head. The flames around her rapidly turned to a pure white, radiating with terrifying heat. Newbies, you two enter the artifact space first. When Rui Jin and Hong Lian transformed, Jian Chen did not stand around either. He sent the two of them into the artifact space as soon as he could. A deafening roar and a clear cry rang out at the same time. Rui Jin and Hong Lian moved at the same time, dealing a full-powered attack together. The sacred dragon sword glowed with dazzling light as it was swung toward Protector Xueqi with a shocking might. The scorching godfire hairpin was surrounded by scorching white flames. It radiated with heat that was even more terrifying than the sun while it shot at Protector Xueqi with unbelievable speed as a white streak of light. Wherever it passed, the air became filled with a burnt smell. It seemed to be incinerating air. Looks like you've already made your choices. Very well. Protector Xueqi coldly said. A gleam of light flashed through her eyes and the sword and hairpin came to a halt. An invisible barrier seemed to have stopped them in their paths. They could not travel any further no matter how terrifying they were. The next moment, a layer of ice crystals appeared on the two weapons. The sharp presence of the sword and the terrifying white flames of the hairpin were unable to stop the rapid expansion of the ice. Wherever the crystals formed, froze the sword chi in place and they instantly extinguished the white flames. In the blink of an eye, the invincible weapons were frozen in the air by a thin layer of frost. Shock was spelled across Rui Jin and Hong Lian's faces. The next moment, their faces suddenly hardened. The moment had become eternal as a thin layer of frost silently appeared on them as well. The ice crystals engulfed them before they could even react, turning them into ice statues. Although the layer of ice was thin, it possessed unbelievable might. Not only did it freeze them, an extremely cold stream invaded their bodies as well, freezing their energy and their souls. At that moment, Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu had all fallen unconscious. To them, time seemed to have stopped. Senior! Jian Chen furiously shouted. He arrived beside Rui Jin and constantly threw punches at the ice. Each fist possessed all his strength as he attempted to free Rui Jin by smashing the frost. However, the crystals were extraordinarily tough despite how thin they were. Jian Chen's fists, which could easily destroy entire mountains, only produced faint thuds as they struck the ice. He could not even leave a mark on the ice, let alone smash through it. Jian Chen drew his emperor armament after seeing how his punches were useless. He stabbed out with everything he had. Ding! As the sharp sword tip struck the ice crystals, the sword resonated at a clear frequency. His attack had basically reached the level of peak 7th heavenly layer Saint Kings, yet they were still unable to leave a single mark on the ice. Jian Chen did not give up. He roared at the sky as his hair and clothes fluttered from his aura. He swung the emperor armament at the ice that trapped Rui Jin, which rang out every single time he struck it. All his attacks contained everything he had, but the layer of frost remained unscathed despite wildly swinging the sword several hundred times. He still failed to leave behind a mark. Protector Xueqi stood unmoving on top of the divine hall like an ice sculpture. She coldly stared at Jian Chen and said, "Go! You can't break through my extreme ice lock. You can't even if you're a saint emperor." Jian Chen knew that he could not break through the thin layer of frost, so he stopped his pointless actions. He turned toward Protector Xueqi and said, "Senior, You've already frozen up the clan treasures. Can't you let the 3 seniors go? I am already acting on behalf of the Holy Maiden for letting you leave unharmed, yet you want to bicker with me? Her eyes became much sharper now as heavy killing intent lingered with her words. With a wave of her hand, Jian Chen suddenly disappeared from the icy plains. Jian Chen only felt like he had been trapped by an invisible force. The force was extremely great, so great that he actually felt like he was facing something as vast as the universe. He felt as weak as an ant before the force, lacking any power to resist at all. The thought of resisting had not even crossed his mind. Oh no! Is the protector going to do something to me? Jian Chen's heart sank. However, as soon as he thought that, he felt his body lighten. The invisible force had suddenly disappeared, which was then followed by a wave of heat sweeping over him. The world of ice had vanished. He now stood in a desolate region of land. Jian Chen knew that he had returned to the Tianyuan continent, but he could not brighten up no matter what, because Rui Jin, Hong Lian and He Yu remained trapped on the icy plains of the north. They had not returned with him. Suddenly, Jian Chen shot into the sky toward the clouds. He hovered in the air as he pulled out a map, quickly finding his bearings. He discovered that he was not very far away from the sea that separated the Arctic from the continent. With a thought, a golden streak of light immediately flew out of area between his eyebrows. It turned into a fist-sized golden tower that hovered in the air. Artifact Spirit, find a place to hide with my aunt and newbies. I'll be going to the Ice Goddess Hall again. If I don't return in 7 days, get newbies to take you to the Chongyang clan in Lore City, Jian Chen said to the golden tower. Receiving an order, the golden tower immediately transformed into a golden streak of light and disappeared into the ground. Jian Chen traveled toward the Arctic once more all by himself. A day later, Jian Chen crossed the vast seas and landed on the icy plains again. He used the illusory flash as he hurried to the depths of the icy plains as a blur. When Jian Chen had traveled less than 10 kilometers, a terrifying stream of coldness seemed to have descended on him. The temperature there seemed to have plummeted suddenly, and a layer of frost quickly formed on Jian Chen. Jian Chen knew that it might have been a warning from Protector Xueqi, but he was not afraid at all. He continued on at the same speed, circulating his chaotic force as fast as he could to resist the terrifying temperature. Jian Chen could not allow Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu to remain trapped on the icy plains because of him. He knew his only chance at saving them was through his sister, so his intentions were very simple. He wanted to approach the Ice Goddess Hall to alert his sister. More and more crystals formed on Jian Chen as his movements slowed down as well. The bone-chilling coldness constantly attempted to invade his body and freeze all signs of life within him, but it was obstructed by the tenacious chaotic force. If you don't back out of the plains right now, you'll end up the same as the 3 of them. An icy cold and hazy voice rang through Jian Chen's head. Senior, please let them go, or I will never stop. Jian Chen replied. However, right when he said that, an extremely terrifying coldness engulfed him. Even his chaotic body was unable to stop it for a moment. He was instantly frozen into a lifelike sculpture and was completely immobilized. Jian Chen lost control over his body even as he devoted all his efforts to controlling the chaotic force to ward off the invading coldness. But the chaotic force was frozen as soon as it came in contact with the presence. He lost control over it. Jian Chen was astounded, but he was unable to stop the advance of the coldness no matter how hard he tried. It quickly spread through his body, freezing up his blood, his flesh, and all signs of life within him. Even his chaotic Niden in his dantian was frozen. At the same time, the coldness quickly spread toward his head in attempt to freeze his soul. However, Jian Chen's sea of consciousness suddenly began to glow with an azure and violet light. It glowed with a brightness that was comparable to the morning sun as soon as the coldness neared his head. The dazzling light illuminated his entire sea of consciousness. Chapter 1227. The sea goddess knew the azure and violet light engulfed Jian Chen's sea of consciousness, protecting it at the same time. As soon as the terrifying coldness came in contact with the lights, it came to a halt, no longer able to advance any further. What coldness? Master, where have you come? Why is there such great coldness where even your chaotic Niden has been frozen? Zi Ying's voice rang out in Jian Chen's head in shock. Not only did Jian Chen lose control over his body, he had also lost all of his senses. The moment the sword spirits began protecting his soul, His consciousness had entered his sea of consciousness without choice. A 5-colored crystal hovered within the sea of consciousness. It was the multicolored stone Jian Chen had come across by accident and purchased in Wallerant City back then. During these past years, the sword spirits had been absorbing the pure energy within it, and thus, the stone was smaller than before. An azure and violet light rotated around the stone. The two lights seemed to be connected with one another but not, at the same time. It seemed as if a certain distance was always maintained. They were the original forms of the sword spirits, but they were deeper in color than before. Jian Chen knew that they had become much more powerful after absorbing the stone and recovering. Although the sword spirits were recovering in Jian Chen's sea of consciousness, they clearly did not pay attention to everything, so they didn't know that Jian Chen had come across the Ice Goddess Hall. Jian Chen explained everything he had gone through at the Ice Goddess Hall in full detail, immediately causing the sword spirits to fall into a temporary silence. Only a while later did Ziying sternly say, "Qing Suo and I once felt someone secretly observing us through their presence, but we were far too weak back then so we could not find where that person was hiding. But now, it looks like that person is Protector Xueqi. Master, this Protector Xueqi is extremely powerful. She shouldn't be a person of this world, and you're completely helpless against her with your current strength. You mustn't go out of your way to provoke her." "Are you saying that she's the same as me, from another world?" Jian Chen questioned in surprise. "Correct, that's indeed the case. However, the only difference is that Master came from the bottom while she came from the top. She's extremely powerful, but her strength suffers the restrictions of the world, so she can't act freely, much less break the balance here, or she'll be punished by the world. As long as you don't provoke her, you should be fine," said Ziying. Jian Chen's heart sank. He had never thought that Protector Xueqi would possess such great origins where she was an expert from a higher world. In other words, he was unable to save Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and Heiyu anytime soon. It would even be impossible for him to see his sister if the Protector obstructed them intentionally. Although the sword spirits had said that the Protector could not act freely, it meant that she could not do things without reason. Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and Heiyu's origin energy treasures had been described by her as saint artifacts that should not have appeared in this world. This was more than enough of a reason for her to act against the three of them. "Master, Ziying and I have not fully recovered yet, so we're not Protector Xueqi's opponent at the moment. However, we can nullify the coldness in your body. You can break free in a while as long as you cooperate, and you must immediately leave the icy plains as quickly as possible. Otherwise, the coldness will be increased by several levels the next time Protector Xueqi moves, and we'll be helpless against it at that time," Ziying sternly explained. "I understand. Ziying, Qingsuo, let's start," said Jian Chen. The two balls of light in Jian Chen's sea of consciousness began to glow brighter and brighter. They shot out from his sea of consciousness like swords while the two balls of light revolved around each other. However, they avoided contact as they shot toward Jian Chen's dantian with lightning-like speed. The two balls of light were like a miniature sun. All of the coldness that they came in contact with along the way melted away. The lights arrived at Jian Chen's dantian and the frost around his chaotic Niden rapidly dispersed, allowing Jian Chen to regain control over his chaotic Niden. Jian Chen immediately made his chaotic Niden to spit out strands of chaotic force without requiring a warning from the sword spirits. The chaotic force then worked with the power of the sword spirits as it swam through his body, rapidly cleansing the coldness. A few seconds later, a great bang suddenly rang through the icy plains. Jian Chen broke free from the thin layer of frost on him, and without any hesitation, he immediately shot into the sky, flying away as a blur. He left the icy plains as quickly as he could. "Master, we've used a lot of energy. We'll have to sleep for some time. We'll only awaken if Master faces fatal danger, or if heavenly resources that pique our interest appear." Ziying's voice was slightly weak, and he made no more sounds after that. Jian Chen entered his sea of consciousness again, and indeed, he found the sword spirits to have darkened. Clearly, they had expended a lot of energy to purge the coldness. Back at the Ice Goddess Hall, Protector Xueqi was still standing where she had been before. She had not moved at all, so she stood there like an ice sculpture as she contemplated things. Suddenly, a gleam of light flashed through her eyes. She glanced in the direction of Jian Chen before losing interest again. Her cold eyes swept past Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and Heiyu's origin energy treasures as if she was deep in thought. Chapter 1228. Chongyanghu's transformation. It's about time I complete my promise to the sea goddess. But I never thought that the day of the worldly ebb would have approached so quickly, Jian Chen mumbled to himself. He was not surprised by the fact that the sea goddess could find him with great precision. Although she had already lost her fleshy body, her soul was even more powerful than in ancient times. She could easily engulf the entire Tianyuan continent or the beast god continent. Jian Chen got off the bed. He had no idea how much time he would spend in the sea realm after leaving, so he needed to sort some things out beforehand. This included dealing with the flame mercenaries. They risked suffering the revenge of those from the underworld sect who had managed to escape. Ahu! Ahu, don't go! Don't leave your mother. You're my only son. I can't be without you. Ahu! Just when Jian Chen opened the door, his first aunt's sorrowful voice rang out from afar. Jian Chen was stunned, but he seemed to think of something soon. His expression immediately changed a little as he ran over. From afar, Jian Chen could see his eldest brother hovering 10 meters in the air with his white robes. He did not give off any rippling of energy, and was not hovering in the air like a heaven saint master. At the same time, Jian Chen did not sense the saint's ruler's abilities from him. Chongyanghu was levitating in the air through a method that Jian Chen did not know or understand. There was an indescribably and unexplainable charm about Chongyanghu, making him seem otherworldly, as if he was a transcended immortal. It was a divine charm. Below, Ling Long looked at him with her head raised. Tears constantly poured from her eyes since she was in utter sorrow. She sobbed as she pleaded with him. A group of guards had already surged over, and even Yu Fengyan, Bai Yushuang, Bai Yuntian, and Chongyangba had hurried over. All of them looked at Chongyanghu in unease. Jian Chen's heart sank. He knew that the exact thing that he did not want to happen had finally happened. He took a step and instantly traversed over 100 meters, arriving before Chongyanghu. Brother! Looking at Chongyanghu's emotionless face, Jian Chen could not help but call out in worry, as if he was trying to awaken Chongyanghu. Chongyanghu was very calm. His gaze was extremely bright at times, clear and transparent like two luminous pearls, which were filled with wisdom and willpower, yet at other times, it was dark, profound like the starry sky. It seemed to contain a whole different world inside, everything in fact. It was extremely profound and difficult to explain. Brother, I will be leaving, Chongyanghu said to Jian Chen as he calmly looked at him. He bore a smile. When he said brother, it had become indifferent, having lost its sincerity long ago. At that moment, Jian Chen felt like his brother had become a different person. He was so strange that Jian Chen could not find any familiarity at all. All the times that he had spent with him in Kargath Academy flashed through Jian Chen's head like a movie, making his heart ache. He had realized that his brother had severed his kinship, which was why he had become so unfamiliar. The brother in his memories had ceased to exist. From that day on, his close brother only lived in his memories. Brother, have you really severed your kinship? Are you really willing to see First Aunt in so much pain? Jian Chen's voice slightly trembled. He still wanted to see if he could turn Chongyanghu back. Chongyanghu remained smiling throughout the exchange. His expression did not change at all with what Jian Chen said. He looked into the distant space with his profound eyes and said, "The world is emotionless. We were born from the world, and we follow the path provided by the world to comprehend it. The impurities of worldly affairs are like strands of a demonic presence, obscuring the wisdom of people and misleading their hearts. Only by transcending worldly affairs can one regain their original awareness, and thus, see through all the mysteries of the world. The life of a mortal is like a dream. When a person is born, the dream begins. When they die, the dream ends. Everything that happens in the dream seems real and fake, but it will all be reduced to a void in the end. The dream seems fake so it cannot be real, and it seems real but it is not real. These are the so-called emotions and desires. They are illusory, and only by abandoning the worldly affairs can you return to your original conscience. Only by understanding the truth and severing the false can you be at peace, stand true to fate, see through the mysteries of the world, and witness the supreme all." With that, Chongyanghu drifted away. He moved away extremely freely, without any reluctance. Jian Chen fell silent. He hovered in the sky as he watched Chongyanghu gradually grow further away. His heart ached. He knew that Chongyanghu had completely severed everything. The current him probably no longer maintained any connections of family. He was only an unchanging spirit to comprehend the world. He had embarked on a different path. Jian Chen became rather depressed at that moment. He was in a horrible mood. He had just lost Rue Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu, and now he had lost the brother he respected the most. Although he had the ability to make his brother forcefully stay, he did not do that. He knew that all of it would result in nothing. Chang Yonghu's path had already been determined and could no longer be changed. Ahu! Ling Long's heart shattered like glass after Chang Yonghu's straightforward departure. She cried out in sorrow before fainting. First madam, first madam. Several female servants paled in fright as they hurried up to catch her. Take her back to her room to rest, Chang Yongba said in dejection as well. His mood was extremely heavy. Jian Chen stared in the direction Chang Yong, who had disappeared in for quite some time before deeply sighing. He returned to the ground in low spirits. Xianger, come here. Bai Yuntian arrived beside Jian Chen and grabbed his arm. After witnessing what had happened with Chang Yonghu, Bai Yuntian became rather scared inside. She was afraid that she would lose her child just like Ling Long. Xianger, can you tell your father what happened to your brother? Chang Yongba asked in pain. He could sense that his first son had probably become a thing of the past. Jian Chen thought silently before he replied. Brother's chosen a path that's suitable for him. He's embarked on a unique cultivation path. I have no idea what will happen in the future. A white-robed person stood on a tree branch as he watched Chang Yonghu walk away from Lore City. He mumbled. Looks like Chang Yonghu has gotten past the final stage. His great liberation is complete. He has finally reached this step. Jian Chen delayed his journey to the Sea Realm by a day due to what had happened with Chang Yonghu. On the next day, he visited the Flame Mercenaries to sort out some matters before properly comforting Bai Yuntian. He promised that he would return after dealing with his matters. He then set off for the Sea Realm with newbies. Emerging from a space gate, Jian Chen and newbies hovered above the vast sea. They felt the calmness of the sea as well as the gentle sea breeze. A comfortable, easy feeling immediately bloomed within Jian Chen, pushing away all the unhappiness from his brother's departure the day before. With the sea goddess assistance, Jian Chen and newbies passed through the barrier without any obstructions. At the same time, the sea goddess voice rang in their heads. The worldly ebb will be erupting soon. I will keep paying close attention to the situation, so spend a few days in the Sea Realm and wait for my news. Yes, your majesty, Jian Chen politely replied. Hesitating slightly, he then said to the empty space, Your majesty, I have something that I would like to inquire about. May I ask if you know about Protector Xueqi of the Ice Goddess Hall? Jian Chen knew that the sea goddess basically existed everywhere, so she definitely would have heard what he said. An illusionary, hazy woman silently appeared before him right after he finished speaking. She sternly asked, Why are you asking about the Ice Goddess Hall? Do you want to visit that place? Before Jian Chen could reply, she followed up with, I've never heard of a Protector Xueqi of the Ice Goddess Hall, but the Ice Goddess Hall is an extremely terrifying place. From the ancient times till now, countless saint emperors have entered those icy plains, but less than a tenth have returned alive. I once tried to investigate the depths of the icy plains using my soul, but as soon as my soul approached that place, it would be frozen by an extremely terrifying coldness. It would even use my soul as a guide and quickly travel toward the sea realm. If I had not pulled back my soul fast enough, the outcome would have been unthinkable. The sea goddess voice was filled with a lingering fear. It was evident just how terrifying that area was for the sea goddess, who belonged to the origin realm. Afterward, the winged tiger god gave me the Empyrean demon orb and also warned me to never investigate the place no matter what unless the icy plains disappear from the Arctic. That was why I never looked into that area again. The sea goddess voice was filled with some mixed emotions. Her soul was extremely powerful. Not only could it engulf the entire sea realm, she could extend it as she wished into the Tian Yuan continent, the Beast God continent, and even the Wasteland continent. Without any exaggeration, her soul could move freely throughout the entire world. There was nothing that could threaten her, including the most dangerous place on the Tian Yuan continent, the Death Nest, except for the Ice Goddess Hall, a region forbidden for her to enter. Your Majesty, then may I inquire when the Ice Goddess Hall appeared? Jian Chen asked again. The sea goddess was a sovereign-like figure of the same era as Mo Tianyun. She knew many more secrets than saint emperors. The Ice Goddess Hall seemed to have always existed. No one knows when it first appeared, but the people of the organization rarely ever visit the Tianyuan continent. Every time they appear, they visit the continent in search of disciples, and they handle everything with an extremely low profile, said the sea goddess. She did not know the answer to Jian Chen's question either. At this moment, Jian Chen thought about how the sword spirits had described Protector Xueqi as someone who had come down from above. In that case, did it mean that the organization was founded by Protector Xueqi? Jian Chen asked again after thinking up to that point. Your Majesty, if you surpass Saint Emperor, is it possible to live for more than 1,000,000 years? The sea goddess shook her head. Beyond Saint Emperor is the origin realm. It has 3 subdivisions, which are receival, returnance, and reciprocity. With my understanding, those of the origin realm can only live for 100,000 years, and even people who have reached reciprocity cannot live longer than 200,000 years after ingesting various heavenly resources to extend their life. Perhaps only cultivation realms beyond that will allow you to live longer. Of course, if there is any heaven-defying treasures, you may be able to live for 1,000,000 years or even longer. However, even if that's the case, they'll end up the same as me, only able to maintain a soul while the body will be gone. At the same time, the soul will not be able to separate itself from the treasure that protects it. Jian Chen became extremely depressed. He had already guessed that Protector Xueqi probably had already surpassed the origin realm, having reached an even greater level. He could not become happy over this no matter what. As the stronger Protector Xueqi was, the more unlikely he would be able to save Rui Jin and the others. Chapter 1229. Sudden changes of the Turtle Clan. The only place Jian Chen could temporarily stay in the Sea Realm was the Turtle Clan, so after his conversation with the Sea Goddess, he headed to the Turtle Clan's territory with newbies. The space within the Sea Realm was much tougher than outside. Saint Kings could not rip open the space there to create space gates, so Jian Chen and newbies could only fly to the Turtle Clan. Haha, it's said that the barrier around the Sea Realm can prevent the entry of foreign Saint Kings. Yet I've entered the Sea Realm as a foreign Saint King without any difficulty at all. Probably only the 2 of us can enjoy such a great treatment. Newbies could not help but laugh freely as they flew. All right, Jian Chen, that big fellow is still cultivating in the artifact space. He doesn't seem to have come to the Sea Realm before, so you might as well let him out to have a look, said newbies again. Jian Chen immediately thought of Tai Ta, who had always been cultivating within the artifact space. Hesitating slightly, he still ended up calling him out. With a flash of golden light, Tai Ta's burly body appeared by Jian Chen's side. His skin carried a faint, golden luster as a gentle golden light shone from his body. It seemed like his skin was made from gold. Since Tai Ta's identity was just far too sensitive on the Tianyuan continent, Jian Chen never dared to let him appear in front of others. After all, the war god of the 100 races had provoked the beast god continent and the Tianyuan continent in ancient times. As soon as the news that the war god had returned made its way out, he would not be able to keep Tai Ta safe with his current strength. However, the Sea Realm was different. In ancient times, only the sea race did not participate in the war, so they did not have any enmity with the war god. To the various experts of the Sea Realm, perhaps the appearance of the war god would have nothing to do with them, much less lead to any conflicts of interest. Exactly because of that, Jian Chen allowed Tai Ta to appear in the Sea Realm in such a bold fashion without any worry. This was the first time Tai Ta had come to the Sea Realm, so he constantly looked around as soon as he appeared outside the artifact space. He was extremely curious about everything, so he asked Jian Chen and newbies about everything. Jian Chen and newbies explained everything to Tai Ta as they traveled. They shared everything they knew with him without hiding anything. The 3 of them maintained a straight course as they flew to where the Turtle Clan was. They flew over many large clans, which caused many experts to come up to stop them. However, since they let their presences radiate out without holding back, the aggressive experts immediately became bright red. They would politely clasp their hands to the 3 of them before obediently backing off. After flying for several hours, the 3 of them finally arrived at the Turtle Clan. However, what they saw was not a prosperous clan, but a battleground dyed with blood. Blood had pooled into small streams with many corpses strewn across the ground. Not only were there members of the Turtle Clan, there were other people as well, but all of the other people wore the same attire. It was possible to tell with a single glance that they belonged to the same organization. Meanwhile, The many grand structures of the clan had been reduced to ruins by the battle as well. Bloody marks were present everywhere. 200-meter-wide pits had been dug far away. Between the ruins of the clan, several dozen people in the same attire worked arduously as they moved the corpses. They moved all the corpses into the 2 large pits to bury them. Hundreds, possibly even thousands, of dead people were already stacked inside. Jian Chen and newbies, who had just arrived, revealed a drastically different expression when they saw this. Only Tai Ta, who was clueless, remained composed as he observed the ruined territory of the Turtle Clan. Jian Chen hovered several hundred meters in the air as he stared blankly at the horrifying landscape. His face was filled with shock and disbelief. He had even begun to doubt his eyes at that moment. Suddenly, fury surged in Jian Chen's heart. Great killing intent radiated from him without control, causing the surrounding temperature to plummet, as if it had turned into an ice cavern. Jian Chen suddenly vanished from the air. By the time he had appeared, he had already traversed 1,000 meters, arriving beside a middle-aged man who was moving corpses. He grabbed the man by the clothes on his chest and loudly demanded, "What's happened to the Turtle Clan? Speak." The middle-aged man was only an Earth Saint Master, so Jian Chen's vast presence and icy cold killing intent pressed against his chest like a mountain, making breathing difficult for him. He had almost suffocated, and he instantly paled. The middle-aged man understood just how terrifying Jian Chen was. He even felt like he was stared into a death god's eyes as he looked at Jian Chen's cold pupils. They seemed like they could suck away his soul at any moment. Warrior. The Turtle Clan's been wiped out by the Tao family. I am a member of the Tao family, so I hope you can spare my life on behalf of the clan, the middle-aged man replied to Jian Chen with a trembling voice. His heart was filled with fear. At the same time, he did not forget to bring up the Tao family in an attempt to scare off Jian Chen to prevent him from doing anything. What? The Turtle Clan's been wiped out. Jian Chen mumbled in a daze as a clap of thunder seemed to have exploded in his head. He felt the world spin around him. Although he did not have any deep ties with the Turtle Clan, their Grand Elder had saved his life before. In order to save him, the Grand Elder had been killed, and his attachment to the clan formed a will after his death. This was more than enough to show just how important the clan was to the Grand Elder. Jian Chen no longer had the opportunity to thank the Grand Elder for saving his life, so all he could do was help him fulfill his final wish, to develop the Turtle Clan and make them regain their former glory, letting the Grand Elder die without regrets. Yet now, not only had the Turtle Clan failed to return to their former glory under his leadership, they had suffered a disaster instead. How was it possible for Jian Chen to not become mad? The Tao family. Jian Chen clenched his teeth and the killing intent around him had reached a maximum. He struck his hand against the head of the middle-aged man, shattering it into pieces and killing him on the spot. The several dozen other people all stopped what they were doing and encircled him. They had come originally to see what was going on, but they immediately shivered inside when they saw Jian Chen smash the man's head into pieces. They began to back away slowly. Jian Chen glanced over all the people with his gaze filled with killing intent. He coldly said, "Are you all people of the Tao family? If that's the case, you can all be buried with the dead clansmen of the Turtle Clan." "Warrior, please wait." At this moment, an old voice filled with fear boomed out. An old man quickly rushed over from afar. He wore the exact same uniform as all the other people. The old man was a saint ruler, but only at the first heavenly layer. Clearly, he had only just broken through, yet he was already sweating bullets. He was horrified by the icy cold killing intent radiating from Jian Chen. "Warrior, an intense battle occurred 3 days ago between the Turtle Clan and the Tao family, but the Turtle Clan was not wiped out. All the remaining people have retreated over 10,000 kilometers to the south. We're only responsible for cleaning up the battlefield." The old man carefully explained with his head lowered his head. He did not choose to run because he knew that it would all be useless with his strength before Jian Chen. Jian Chen immediately expanded his presence after what the old man had said. Indeed, he found quite a few people of the Turtle Clan 10,000 kilometers to the south. Without any hesitation, he immediately shot into the sky and flew to where the Turtle Clan had gathered. "Big fellow, let's go!" Newbies yelled to Tai Ta before following Jian Chen. The old man sighed a breath of relief after avoiding calamity. He wiped away his cold sweat and turned to the others. "Don't bother with these corpses anymore. Another great expert has arrived for the Turtle Clan." Let's hurry back to the clan to report this. The place used to be empty, but it had now become the territory of a large clan. The clan that took up this land was the Turtle Clan. The Turtle Clan had only recently claimed this area for themselves. Many structures were newly built, and there were many houses that were still under construction. Although people flowed in and out of the clan unceasingly, very few people spoke. Every single one of them was filled with sorrow as they silently built their new homes with clenched teeth. Every single one of them possessed a hatred that they could not let go, which caused a miserable atmosphere to loom over the entire clan. Jian Chen, newbies, and Tai Ta arrived at the new territory of the Turtle Clan at the same time. As soon as they touched down, a person building his house noticed them. He immediately recognized Jian Chen and became stunned before rubbing his eyes. His face then became filled with delight and disbelief. It's the ruler. The ruler's returned. It's the ruler who has returned. Fantastic, our ruler has returned. The person who recognized Jian Chen exclaimed. His voice was filled with excitement. What? The ruler's returned? Is that true? Where? Where has the ruler returned? Has the ruler really returned? I see him. It really is the ruler. Fantastic, the ruler really has returned. More and more people discovered Jian Chen. They all enthusiastically added their voices to the cries as excitement flooded their faces. To all the people of the Turtle Clan, the ruler was their pillar of support. He was the hope of the Turtle Clan. Even though they had been forced into such a horrible position by the Tao family, they were still filled with confidence because of the ruler. All of them believed that the Turtle Clan would never fall apart as long as the ruler watched over them. This was because every single one of them could remember just how weak the Turtle Clan had been several years ago. The entire clan did not even have a 16th star expert, yet after the ruler had come, the entire clan had undergone an overwhelming change. In just a few years, they expanded from having no 16th star experts to having at least 5 16th star experts at all times. They had even taken back most of their former crystal mines. Although the Turtle Clan had suffered a severe blow this time, all of them believed that the reason why they had suffered this blow was because the ruler was not present. They would never have suffered defeat if the ruler had been present. Chapter 1230. The arrogant Tao family in the center of the clan, a grand hall over 20 meters tall stood silently. The entire hall was an earthen color. It had been created by a saint ruler using his abilities to control the earth, creating it from soil in a very short amount of time. Quite a powerful energy was hidden inside. At this moment, several saint ruler elders of the Turtle Clan gathered in an extremely spacious room of the hall in worry. Every single one of them had things weighing on their hearts, filling the room with a heavy atmosphere. What do you think the clan should do now? Do we give up all the crystal mines that used to belong to us, or do we continue to develop here and face against the constant threat of the Tao family moving against us? The fourth elder sternly inquired. No, we definitely can't relinquish the crystal mines that used to belong to us. All these mines are a huge resource for the clan. It's the only thing that can support our vigorous growth. If we give them up now, it'll be even more difficult to get them back in the future. Since a hall elder of the Sea Goddess Hall stepped forward to stop our battle with the Tao family, I believe the Tao family won't attack us so easily in the future. The sixth elder disagreed right after the fourth elder finished speaking. Humph. Are you relying on the hall elders to always stand by our side? Sixth elder? The ancestor of the Tao family, Tao Jingtian, will reach the peak of the 16th star soon. He will become a hall elder sooner or later. Once he takes that position, he can move against our clan without the slightest worry. That day will become the true end of our clan. The fifth elder coldly snorted. He disagreed with the sixth elder very much. The fourth elder gently sighed because of what the fifth elder had said. He added, it's a pity that the ruler's not present. If he was, then all would be fine. Only he can determine the rise or decline of our clan. The ancestor of the Tao family is just far too powerful, and he's even joined with the Moshi clan through marriage, which makes him even more influential in the sea realm. Coupled with the fact that he's formed an alliance with over 10 large clans, the number of 15th and 16th star experts they've gathered is not something our clan can deal with. We probably still won't have the power to contend with the Tao family even if the ruler returns. The seventh elder added in a heavy voice. The fourth elder's expression changed, and he sternly looked at the seventh elder. He berated seventh elder. How can you talk about the ruler like that? As an elder of the Turtle Clan, you can lose confidence in yourself, but you should never lose confidence in the ruler because he is the greatness of the Turtle Clan, the person who holds all the hope of the Turtle Clan. We are only truly powerful when we have him watching over us. We need to stand firm. Once the ruler returns, we'll be able to recover from this situation. The seventh elder immediately fell silent. He lowered his head. The ruler of the Turtle Clan never stayed in the clan for very long, but he had established a great impression among the elders. Our report. At this moment, a guard called out from afar as he rushed over in a hurry. Seeing how impatient the guard was, the elders immediately stopped their discussion. One of them stared at the guard and heavily asked, "What's happened? Has the experts of the Tao family come?" "And no, elders, the our ruler has returned." "The ruler has returned," the guard huffed. He was extremely excited. "What? The ruler's returned?" The elders present beamed with delight. One of them chuckled aloud and said with a clear voice, "Everyone, let's go welcome the ruler." "No need, I'm already here." Jian Chen's deep voice rang through the hall right after the elder spoke. Before Jian Chen had finished speaking, he had already appeared before everyone with newbies and Tai Ta along with a great group of clansmen. The clansmen stopped outside the hall while joy and excitement from the bottom of their hearts was plastered across their faces. "We greet the ruler." The elders of the Turtle Clan immediately bowed to Jian Chen. They were all emotional where even their voices trembled slightly. Jian Chen walked up to the throne and sat down while the elders stood in a row below in a courteous manner. Newbies and Tai Ta were much more relaxed in comparison. They knew that Jian Chen had important matters to deal with, so they did not disturb him. Instead, they began to stroll around the place by themselves. "Tell me exactly what has happened. Why has the Tao family attacked the Turtle Clan without any reason?" Jian Chen coldly asked with a sunken expression. The fourth elder immediately stepped forward. He politely explained the situation to Jian Chen. "Ruler, I believe you know that the Turtle Clan has been working on taking back the crystals mines that had been taken from us after our strength had increased. Originally, we had taken back most of them with only a few better, larger mines still in the possession of a few large clans. They persisted in not returning them, so in order to resist the Turtle Clan, they've even formed an alliance with the Tao family. The remaining mines are just far too important to us, and they belonged to us originally, so we never gave up on them. Hence, many conflicts occurred between the experts of the Turtle Clan and the Alliance, causing both sides to suffer casualties. However, since we had 5 16th-star experts guarding us, we were in no way weaker than the Alliance, so we were locked in a stalemate. But this balance in power was disrupted a month ago. The Tao family has joined with another peak-level organization of the Sea Goddess Hall, the Moshi clan, through marriage. They have 2 great experts, one at the 16th star and another at the 15th star. The 16th star ancestor of the Moshi clan is almost as powerful as Tao Zhengtian. The alliance completely exceeds us in strength with the participation of the Moshi clan. Soon afterward, the Tao family sent an envoy to our clan and brazenly declared that we had seized many crystal mines without any fear and had broken the peace within the territory of the Sea Goddess Hall because we had the support of a few 16th star experts. He also demanded us to hand over all our crystal mines as well as pay for the losses they had recently suffered, or the Tao family would unite all the clans and organizations we had abused to come teach us a lesson. Reaching there, the fourth elder's voice had already become filled with an anger that he struggled to suppress. His eyes were about to burst into flames. Even the other elders in the hall were extremely furious as well, and their faces had paled. Jian Chen's face sank even more as he sat on the throne. Heavy killing intent had already appeared in his eyes. He had been angered by the actions of the Tao family. Ignoring the fact that the crystal mines all used to belong to the Turtle Clan, just the demand from the Tao family that stated that the clan had to hand over all their crystal mines had already crossed the line for Jian Chen. Not to mention that they had even demanded the Turtle Clan to make up for the losses that they had suffered in recent years. The Tao family could no longer be described as arrogant and rampant. They had gone overboard, far overboard. The fourth elder recovered and continued. How could we agree to such an overboard demand right off the bat? As a result, the Alliance began to launch a large-scale attack on our clan 3 days ago, but we could do nothing since the Alliance's strength completely exceeded our own. Even with Qin Do, Qing Yishuan, Lan Jing, Xian Pian, and Mokas, all experts of the 16th star, we were still unable to stop the attack from the Tao family. The battle lasted for just half a day, and all the 5 of our 16th star experts became heavily injured by the people of the Alliance. In the end, the battle only reached a conclusion because a Hall Elder had made it in time. Indeed, the Tao family wanted to use the power of the Alliance to wipe us out 3 days ago. If the Hall Elder had not forcefully interfered and protected us, we probably would have been wiped out by the Tao family already. Ruler, we need to take revenge for this, said the 5th Elder righteously. Ruler, our clan sustained extremely heavy injuries in the battle. Half of the clansmen have passed away, over 30,000, and we've lost 4 elders. We can't just do nothing over this debt of blood. Ruler, please lead us. Ruler, you must let us pay back the debt of blood. Every single elder within the hall resentfully spoke through clenched teeth. All of their eyes burned with the roaring flames of revenge. How many 15th and 16th star experts are there among the Alliance? Jian Chen coldly asked. He would obviously take revenge for the Turtle Clan, but he needed to have a proper understanding of the Tao family's strength first. Jian Chen could already completely ignore Saint Rulers. He cared more about how many Saint Kings the Tao family had. The elders all hesitated slightly. Then the 4th elder replied, Ruler, the Tao family currently has 4 15th star experts and at least 2 16th star experts. They would be the 2 ancestors of the Tao family and the Mashi clan. No, there was another expert who matched up against Tai Do in a stalemate other than the Tao family ancestor and the Mashi clan ancestor. There should be at least one other 16th star expert. I don't think all of you saw it, but when the battle erupted, there was another person in the Alliance who watched on. I could not discern their strength. He did not take part in the battle. I am guessing that he's a 16th star expert as well, added another elder. Jian Chen frowned. He discovered that it was indeed rather difficult for the Saint Ruler elders to discuss the level of Saint Kings. Stop rambling. Bring me Qing Yishuan, Tai Do, Lan Jing, Xianpian, and Mokas. I know they're healing, so summon them immediately, ordered Jian Chen. Yes, Ruler. An elder followed his orders and immediately rushed out of the hall as quickly as possible. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.